Yo, what's up? Welcome to PS I Love You XOXO episode 74. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr. Joining me is Gameonicist, aka Janet Garcia.
Yo, what's good?
Janet, how you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm a little bit hungry, which we just talked about like 2 seconds ago off camera, but pretty good otherwise. Reaching the end of E3, which is gonna be nice.
Yeah. First of all, I gotta compliment the blazer. The white blazer is really fresh with the PlayStation
Thank you.
logo
PlayStation
shirt.
5. Also, I
Fresh.
have the official, very unofficial, because I bought it at my local grocery store, PS I Love You mug that
Oh
says
my
XOXO
God.
on it.
That's perfect.
Yeah, this is
Gotta
the
rep
extent of my
brand.
preparedness, though. So it's all on the front end. No idea what the show's about. No, I'm just kidding.
I do like that you did cosplay as a PS5 today. That is really good. But you also decided to stunt on the rest of E3 and all of the presentations and all that stuff. You're looking fire today, Janet.
Looking
Thanks.
mad fire. Speaking of E3, Janet, how's your E3 going?
It's going pretty good. You know, a lot of jumping around, doing different stuff with different people on different channels. My channel, MinMax here. And that's been fun because part of what I miss about E3 is, you know, seeing everybody and having like the full-fledged experience. This is like a nice way to do that in the digital space. How's yours been?
Exactly. It's been pretty good. It's been my first E3 with Kind of Funny, and so I've gotten to actually do the thing where I'm reacting to everything live over the course of the week, and it's been not only really fun but also really tiring. And so like by the end of the days, I've been getting very exhausted. Today I'm doing pretty good because there was that break in between the E3 Indie Showcase and the Capcom Showcase, so I got to take a break while I built PS I Love You, the docket. I'm very excited for this one because we have a really big show. You have a really good show. Here's a quick tease. We have two topic of the shows for you. That's usually not a thing we do, but we have two of them this time around. Janet, do you have a favorite E3 showcase so far?
Well, for official E3, definitely Xbox, which is, I mean, they're the biggest one, so they should be the best one. So yeah, Xbox, I think it's really hard to find too much to complain about with that showcase. Like I'd give it around a 7 or an 8. Like I think other than, I don't know, maybe a Halo release date would have been amazing, like a hard release date, and like maybe one or two other surprises. But I was genuinely surprised by a lot of the stuff they showed. They had a cool, like a couple indie things. Like I thought it was just a really solid presentation. But also a shout out to Wholesome Games because I really liked the indie stuff that has come out of like the E3 era that, you know, may not be on the E3 schedule calendar, but going on around then. What about yours?
Mine would have to be Xbox. Yeah, I think Xbox had a phenomenal showcase.
Oh my God, on a PlayStation podcast?
Yeah, hey, it is what it is. I literally said during the Gamescast episodes, which people can catch on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames and on podcast services around the globe, we went through all of the E3 showcases so far and gave our grades, and I gave Xbox an A+. I think they absolutely knocked it out of the park. But I do want to know from you, though, do you have a favorite game announcement or a favorite game showing?
Ooh, oh geez, it's tough to say. The first thing that comes to mind, this is not my favorite, but it's the first thing I thought of, was just 12 Minutes getting a release date. I've been looking forward to that game for such a long time. And with Annapurna having their presentation, I think either a few weeks from now or like in July, I wasn't sure if we'd get any like significant details about the games that are under their umbrella. So I just was really surprised and excited to see that. And then like, I don't know, shout out to Outer Worlds 2, just because that was also very unexpected. And now I have to go back and finish the first one. I'm excited for the new like coat of backlog that was added through all of these, where I'm like, okay, time to go and like finally dig into Slime Rancher, finally dig into Outer Worlds. And
I went ahead and ordered Mario plus Rabbids Kingdom Battle just because the new one was announced and everybody was like, oh yeah, you gotta check that out. Like it's a really good game, and so
I love that game. Yeah, that was definitely like a highlight too.
Yeah, Outer Worlds 2 for me was a big one. I keep forgetting that they announced that, and every time I think about it, I'm like, yo, let's fucking go. Because I had a half of mind to think that, one, they wouldn't want to announce it anytime soon because they're working on Grounded and they're working on Avowed. But then two, I could have easily seen Microsoft maybe going to Obsidian and be like, hey, there's not really a new Fallout game on the horizon, so do you guys want to work on a Fallout or a Fallout New Vegas 2 or something along those lines? To see them sticking with the Outer Worlds, I think is such a cool thing, and I'm super excited to see what they bring with that. Janet, while you're here though, we got to mention a thing because of course last time you're on PS I Love You XOXO, I challenged you to a trophy race. Yes. I believe the rules were first to 3 trophies for new games that had released since we did that episode.
Platinum
and we do have an update.
Specific.
Platinum trophies, yes, platinum trophies. And we do have an update on that.
Yes,
Janet, I have obtained 3 platinum trophies.
You have obtained the 3. I only obtained 1, which is so sad. I really wanted to at least have 2, make it on paper competitive. But like I mean, I got my excuses ready to go, but I want to hear your story of how you got to where you are today in terms of platinums, not anything else.
I think I got all 3 literally within a week. I think it was last week that I got all of them. Yeah, it was a struggle. It was a struggle because I started off with Returnal hoping that I could get the platinum in that game, and halfway through my platinum run, like after actually beating the game and trying to play more to get that platinum, that game just defeated me. I was like, no, I can't do this. The randomization is throwing it for a whack. I do not have the patience to wait for certain rooms to spawn so I could get the exact codex that I want to add back into the collection. And so I started on that one, and I was like, nah, I'm good. And then Mass Effect 1 was another one that I wanted to go to, even though I talked to you later, and apparently that was against the rules because part of the rules were that we couldn't do a remaster.
Yeah.
But I started with Mass Effect 1 as well, and then partway through, a thing happened that cut that trophy run short. I would have to basically restart that game if I wanted to get the platinum trophy, and so I gave up on that one. But I ended up playing through Operation Tango, which is a PS Plus game for this month, which is a co-op game. Absolutely love that game. Played it twice for the platinum, which I think is the same platinum that you got.
Yep. Yeah, I remember like it was one of the few times I think people sometimes say that I'm like, very critical, which is somewhat true. But it was the first time I was really playing with hate in my heart, and the hate was specifically for you. I was playing and I'm like, oh yeah, like the devs came into, I saw you streaming the game too. And like, shout out to like that dev team, because the community manager was like in all the Twitch streams that Friday. Like they were in my Twitch stream. Like later we streamed on my boyfriend's channel. They were there. They were in some other person's Twitch stream that we rated. I was like, you are here putting in the work on a Friday. Like they're just going hard on that. So they mentioned like, oh yeah, it's a pretty like achievable platinum. And I looked at the list and I'm like, okay, we can do this. Like, so I was just like playing and I'm like, take that. Like, it was like a weird battle against you for the platinum, but that was a pretty enjoyable one. And I had a fun time playing through it.
Yeah. And so I got that one, and then I got Aerial Knights Never Yield. Shout out to that game. That is a game that showed up, I believe, at some indie showcase. I think it might have been Nintendo. That's one that has a cool style to it, cool soundtrack. And the platinum, fairly easy, except for one trophy that you kind of have to have some skill for. But that was an easy platinum. And I didn't play it because it was an easy platinum. I did indeed play it because I was looking forward to it. But I got that one, and then I also got the one for what was my third one? What was my third? Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart.
Which I knew so the problem that I ran into was, and then we hadn't discussed this in the front end, but it didn't end up being that relevant. But I was like, oh, blessing, should we be telling each other when we're getting like these platinums? Because or else it's like, I feel like that's part of how it changes your cadence of play if you know what the other person's doing. So you were like, okay, yeah, I got my Operation Tango one, and I'm like, okay, I just got the same one. And I knew about the Aerial Knights thing. And what made that one rough is like at any time you would basically instantly get that platinum because you were just waiting for like the trophy bug thing or just to finish the last thing you had to do. So it was like you had that one in reserve. So like once I lost that, and then I started playing Ratchet and Clank when it came out on Friday because like my code came in the night before, and I was like, all right, like the game's like 15, I don't know, 12, 15 hours, and the platinum's like 18 plus depending on your cadence and stuff. And I was playing it, and I looked at they have the compare trophies feature, so I was like, oh man, he's at 78. I don't know, like maybe he's like tired or something, or like he's way ahead, so maybe he'll like sleep on this. And I'm like, I know, it was just so salty because I'm like, I know I can channel problematic levels of gaming because I used to do guides, and that's a lot of game at a lot of time. So I'm like, I know if I had like the right parameters, I could make it happen. But I mean, at the end of the day, we had the same trajectory of time. So I will bitch a little bit about you had Ratchet before me, so obviously you're gonna get that trophy, that platinum before me. But I can't whine too much because I really should have just gone for the Resident. I should have gone for the Resident Evil platinum.
Don't hate the player. I should have gone
for the Resident Evil platinum, but I took like that game came out, and then I took a week off, and like I try to keep it really real on my weeks off. Like I'm not trying to do stuff that I would do on a normal week. So then I didn't do it, and then I was like, man, that mercenaries thing, they want S rank. I'm really more of like a B or A rank player. And then, and then you just start to kind of run out of time too. But I was definitely eyeing a couple indies and trying to see what I wanted to do. And then I'm like, do I want to go up to Aerial Knights? And I'm like, nah, I don't want to be like a platinum swagger jacker. So I'm
Janet,
like, I don't
mean to just jump in as you're talking, but this sounds like a lot of excuses right now. This sounds like a lot 100%.
Of like, I came prepared with my reasons for why I'm taking this L. I can't just show up and be like, and now part of it was, what I did like about this though, is we're both like the same kind of lazy and disinterested. So I'm like, neither of us was really trying that hard, right? Like, let's be real. But you still wanted to win. That's the thing. So I was it's totally my fault, but like, I'm still gonna complain. Like the kid who gets the F, and I'm like, can you please grade this? And you're like, no, you turned it in late. I'm like, yeah, but please. Like, that's where I'm at right now in my headspace with this race.
Well,
but
Janet, GG's. I'm gonna shake your hand virtually. It was well played.
Which way are you? I never know which way you are.
No, I'm just going forward. I'm just going at the camera.
Okay.
I'm just going at the camera. And so, GG's. I'm sure we'll have some type of challenge again in the future.
Yes.
This was a fun time. I enjoyed doing this. Still, it didn't convert me into the trophy hunter that I thought it was going to, but it was a fairly good time.
Even though I lost, which maybe like I didn't go hard enough to feel the pain of trophy hunting, but during this time too, I was working on that Overcooked All You Can Eat platinum, which was not associated with this race. But I got that, and I was so excited, and like it was my first ever platinum in my life, and I tasted what it meant to be the kind of sick person who loved platinums. It did hit different. I was like, yeah, look at me. Like I got into it, and we have a little platinum or trophy chalice thing in my house. It's just a mug basically. So it's like, okay, when we get platinums, we drink out of this mug. So like I poured a beer into that mug, and I took some photos by the TV. Like I was into it. So I don't know. I think this did awaken something within me that I'm gonna regret, but we'll see how it goes.
We'll see how it goes. Janet, we got to talk about E3 because, of course, E3 week has been going along. Remember, this is PS I Love You, XOXO, your PlayStation podcast. Each and every week, we join you to talk about the biggest topics in PlayStation. If you like that, you can watch it live right here as we record on patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, except for today, where we are recording on twitch.tv/kindoffunnygames, or you can watch it on Tuesday when it posts for everyone on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames and on podcast services around the globe.
And today, it'll be later today instead of Tuesday, so just a
yes, correct. Housekeeping for you. The E3 train is still rolling. You can catch all of our live reactions already done over on youtube.com/kindoffunnygames. And speaking of, don't miss out on the Tuesday E3 shenanigans because we're, of course, reacting to that Nintendo Direct and the Bandai Namco showcase. So get hyped for that. And I believe Janet Garcia herself will be joining us for the Nintendo Direct presentation. Yeah, so get hyped for that. Thank you to our Patreon producers, Donovan Harkness, Omega3, Tyler Ross, Delaney Twinning, Julian the Gluten-Free Gamer, James Hastings, Casey Andrew, and Elliot. Today we're brought to you by Honey, Fitbod, and Canva, but I'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin with what is, and forever will be, topic of the show. So like I said before, we have two topics of the show. We're going to start with E3, the PlayStation perspective, because as we know, PlayStation's absent during E3. They've been absent during the last few E3s. I want to talk about what this E3 during this weekend has been and how that pertains to PlayStation. I'm going to start off with the question, does PlayStation have it right by not showing up at E3? I'm pulling a question from the nanobiologist who writes in about this exact thing. Nanobiologist writes in to say this. Does PlayStation have it right with not being at E3? They have games. They've proven that time and time again, and when we feel like we have a drought from them, they have a state of play to calm us down. Everyone is exhausted already, and we still have one more day. Games get drowned out by all the noise at E3, and as evident with Halo and Jeff Grubb's comments, it's putting more stress on developers even if they have big teams. So, does E3 have it right by taking that stress away from their devs and believing in them to announce stuff when their games are ready to be announced/fully shown off? Janet, do you feel like PlayStation continuing to step out from E3 and do things in their own streams, do you think that continues to be the right decision for PlayStation?
I think so. I feel like the thing is E3 still does have cachet as much as we want to talk about it's dying. It's not as good as it used to be. The E3 portal this year was bad because it was. That it's expensive because it's obscenely expensive to be part of E3. Like I think, financially and, visibility wise, is it the biggest L for them? I'm going to say no because at the end of the day, they're still PlayStation. But there is a magic in the E3 season and being a part of, quote unquote E3 proper that you just can't really replicate anywhere else. And I think, while it's true, it does bring additional stress to developers. And it's not that I'm, pro stressing out teams, but it sort of reminds me of what makes sports amazing and interesting and exciting, which is you have a moment of where you truly are on stage, where this is you. It's often, E3 presentations are often live, sometimes pre-recorded, but usually live. Like, this is the big show. This is the playoffs. This is the championship. Like, it means something. And I think that weight, it brings out the best in everyone involved, like from content creators, like all of us here, on a normal month, we're not going to stream this much. We're not going to make this many podcasts. Like, everyone's out here bringing it. Developers and publishers are bringing it. Like, this is the time. And I think what E3 does nicely as well is it sort of, which maybe PlayStation likes not having this, but it kind of creates like the curve for that company's year. I think, like, if your E3 wasn't a smash hit, like, we can't, like, what are you going to announce after this that's going to really impress anybody? Like, you probably would have done that at E3. So, while there are benefits to not being part of that pressure and having to pay, I think there's just something about E3 that you just can't replicate. And I really hope to see this PlayStation return, though I do think, to low-key get ahead of ourselves here, I do think that E3 kind of like misses PlayStation more than PlayStation misses E3. But yeah, I think it would be awesome for them to come back, and I think everyone would be really excited to see that from both the PlayStation fan side and the E3 fan side.
Yeah, I think there's something nice about E3 that publishers and companies take notice of, because we did have last year E3 get canceled and not happen, and companies have to find their own footing and have their own presentations. And I think, some did it well, some didn't do it well. You saw the birth of Ubisoft Forward and how that's been a good thing for them. And you've seen other efforts in terms of how are we going to make a presentation by ourselves without being connected to an E3. I think this week there's a reason why you're seeing a lot of companies kind of reconnect themselves to E3, because there is something that's nice about having this 1 week where all eyes are on it, and that might boost your presentation. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about things like Ubisoft Forward, right? Things like Bandai Namco or Capcom. When we get into the conversation of PlayStation, I think that does become less of an enticing thing, because PlayStation is PlayStation, right? People are going to show up for that whenever. I think it's similar to Nintendo, even though Nintendo is having a direct this week. I don't think Nintendo has to have a direct this week. I think they think it's nice to have a direct this week because it's E3, and because, hey, might as well shed light for what the rest of this year might look like for Nintendo. But I do think there is that, I think you nail it well, where it is the fact that PlayStation needs E3 way less than E3 might need a PlayStation. And so for PlayStation, I think it becomes the question of what is your win with showing up for E3? What is your enticement for showing up to E3? The thing I'll bring up is the question of, is it dangerous to have Xbox have this ground uncontested? I think this might be the big question, because Xbox yesterday had a fantastic conference amongst a bunch of different showcases. Xbox coming out right after Summer Games Fest kickoff, after Ubisoft, after a bunch of different stuff. Them coming out and having the biggest announcements of E3, I think does set the tone and does allow them to kind of fill in the rest of the year in a way that feels so confident, especially when you have Phil Spencer toward the end of that Xbox showcase being like, hey, this is what Xbox is. Hey, this is our mission statement. This is our argument. You can look forward to monthly games coming out on Game Pass for the rest of the year. You can look forward to big first party games coming out on Game Pass quarterly. You can look forward to the slate of games that we presented, not only for the rest of this year, but for next year. I do think there's a conversation there to be had as far as, is that a dangerous thing? Because for what E3 used to be, cool, Xbox goes first. We're going to have Nintendo on Tuesday, but in that Monday slot, you got PlayStation. And for quite a stretch there of years, PlayStations were the one that were usually knocking it out of the park and making us forget about Xbox by the time those presentations come around. Now Xbox has all the room to breathe, and Xbox is having better presentations than they've ever had before. Janet, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is dangerous. I think you're only number one until you're not. And I feel like people forget that, yes, PlayStation has been in the lead. And if I had to bet money on it, I probably still would pick them, just because of what they have so much going for them, I think, at this point. But again, you're only winning till you're not. And, Xbox doesn't really have anything to lose in that sense, right? Like, and again, the Nintendo competition, it is part of there, but it's like such a different game that it's not really worth comparing, the Series X to the Nintendo Switch as much. But Xbox is really just here putting it all on the table. Are you going to lose to Sony more? No, you're not. So just put it all out there, and you might, get a foothold there. And they're doing so many, I think, for lack of a better term or a nicer term, aggressive moves to say, here's who we are, here's what we're putting out. And we're kind of seeing that on both Xbox and PlayStation. I don't know if it's just me, or maybe it's just because, I've only been in the industry for maybe like 5 or so years. This is my first like fresh generation. But I feel like every few days, like they're like putting out these big presentations that are like blog forum roadmaps to like their philosophy in the next few years. And like PlayStation the other day had that thing where they were just like, it's VR day now, and they're just going to put out a bunch of blog posts about VR. So I do think there's already a lot of competition in, hey, let me tell you what I'm doing and let me make it seem appealing and let me sell this to you. So yeah, I think there is a danger in forgetting about PlayStation. I mean, we're only talking about PlayStation today because, it's a PlayStation podcast, and we're talking about it in the context of what did we want to see, what did we miss, what did we lose out on? And I mean, certainly some of the things that are on one stage are on that one stage because that's the acquisition or what the deal was, or maybe they appear on both. So without having that counterpart, it does leave a big gap, and it does make it an easier answer for, oh, what was the best presentation? It's Xbox, and there's not you can't answer Sony because you don't have a presentation. So there's no way for you to be part of that conversation. And I think that's definitely dangerous, especially when you start to see the conversation around Xbox also sort of nudge out PlayStation in the sense of what things they do maybe better. I've been thinking a lot about, Phil Spencer's comment earlier this week about their approach with PC and how like, oh, we have things just ready. We don't port it over and make you pay twice for it years later. And then it hit me so hard because I'm like, damn, I never really thought about it as such a negative, but when you frame it that way, like it really does sit with me. And the more and more Xbox steps into the spotlight and PlayStation is resting on its laurels, you're only resting on those until, eventually you don't have them anymore. So I think it's definitely dangerous.
Yeah. And I think there's something to be said too about how Xbox went about filling in what the rest of this year looks like and the immediate future for them looks like. I saw somebody in chat mentioning, why do people think Xbox had such a great showcase? And for me, the thing that made their showcase great was the fact that it made me look at their immediate future and their far future and be like, cool, I think Xbox is set in terms of where they're at with games right now, right? Like you look at Xbox Game Pass and the stuff that they have releasing day one on Xbox Game Pass, and you're looking at things like for just this year, you're looking at Psychonauts 2, you're looking at Age of Empires, you're looking at Forza Horizon 5, Halo Infinite, Back 4 Blood, The Ascent, Sable, The Gunk, and that's only like half of the ones they have in the graphic alone that they tweeted out. That is painting a picture of, hey, no, we got games here. We got an active fall here. That alongside the third-party games that you are going to buy because they aren't on Xbox Game Pass, they're leading into this fall with confidence, with the confidence of what their fall looks like. And when you talk about the Xbox Game Pass stuff they have coming up in the future, right? You're talking about The Outer Worlds 2, you're talking about Contraband, you're talking about Starfield, you're talking about Redfall. Some of those have dates for next year as well, right? Redfall and Starfield are dated for next year in a way that I think is giving Microsoft the confidence and the faith needed from their audience that the future looks bright for the platform. Over on the PlayStation side, of course, PlayStation fans, I think, also feel confident of PlayStation's future. There's nothing for us, I think, that's made us go, oh, we're fucked, or oh, where are the games? But I think there is that thing of, for this fall, I'm looking forward to possibly Horizon Forbidden West if it makes it, which there's a large chance that it very well might not. I'm looking forward to Kena Bridge of Spirits, and I'm looking forward to Deathloop, and then some third-party stuff. I feel like there is a lot. There's a lot of ground to make for PlayStation in terms of building out a library that feels like it has multiple tiers of, hey, here's your big PlayStation first party games that you're hyped for. Here's stuff that we're going to associate with PlayStation in some way or form. Xbox has Xbox Game Pass to do that, and stuff coming to Xbox Game Pass day one to do that. PlayStation does have things like PlayStation Indies, which is why I shout out things like Kena Bridge of Spirits or things like Solar Ash. But Janet, for you, I guess I'd ask the question, where are you at in terms of the immediate future for PlayStation? Like, do you feel like you have the confidence in terms of the games that are there, both from first party in terms of stuff that we know are on the horizon, like your God of War Ragnaroks and your Horizons and everything else?
I have confidence because like it's here now, right? Like this whole year, I've honestly been leaning really heavy onto PlayStation. Things like even Operation Tango, with that being on PlayStation Plus, like immediately, I'm like, okay, I'm playing that. Like everything I'm playing, I'm sort of defaulting to PlayStation lately because I'm already spending so much time there that it's like, okay, let's just tab over and keep it rocking with that. Ratchet and Clank just came out. That's huge. That's a big deal. It's one of the, next gen experiences on PlayStation 5, following up Returnal from not that long ago. So a lot of times when I am playing like the new hot game that's coming out, it is on PlayStation. But I think to kind of, reiterate or touch on the idea of people saying, what was so great about Xbox's conference? I think what was great about it is it had a little bit of all the points that I look for when I'm looking at these conferences. We all like judge them differently and we all have different tastes and sensibilities too. But for me, it's like, okay, we got some updates on games I knew about. We got some games I already knew about getting release dates. And I think the thing on the Xbox side of things is the number one criticism of Xbox is there aren't any exclusives. And with stuff like Starfield, even though we don't know like if that game's going to be good, we didn't really see a lot about it. It's hope, right? It's an idea. And that's the thing too, where it's like on the PlayStation side, it's like we can chill because we know Horizon's down the line, we know God of War, and those are such familiar IPs that have had strong games right before this game that we can trust that that's going to come out and be fire. Starfield, it's a little bit more, we don't really have as much confidence, I think, with that. But it's like, okay, if Xbox can get a few of those wins and establish a few of those IPs, what makes them worse than Sony? Not much, maybe nothing. Maybe they, that is the big potential turn because they are making those acquisitions and having an answer for that question of what will I play on Xbox. And I felt like the showcase answered a lot of that question for me. And the Game Pass thing was just, incredible, especially in the era of everyone being super freaked out about the $70 games price point. It's like, well, if I'm already paying for Game Pass, I can have these games already. Like, I'm not going to worry about doing the extra effort to get them on my PlayStation if I can play them on my Xbox at like a $10 or $15 a month price point. Not let alone if you learn how to just unsubscribe and resubscribe, you're going to be saving a lot of money by going on to the Xbox side of things. And I think that's what, really did it for me. That and, like kind of what we mentioned before, the surprises. So like definitely from the PlayStation side of things, I want to have that same experience. I think I have a lot of confidence in what they have in terms of their, hallmark IPs. Like, I think those are really set and solid, but I want a few more things to be delighted by on the PlayStation side that I wasn't expecting, like things to look forward to that I don't even know exist yet, I think is what's most exciting about these presentations and E3 in general.
Coming off of that conversation, I do want to ask the question, does PlayStation do anything this summer? I'm bringing in two write-ins from both Chris Hutchins and Kebabs, who run into patreon.com/kindoffunnygames, just like you can, and says, starting with Chris writes in and says, I'm not surprised PlayStation is not doing anything this week. They don't like to share. Why would they want to share the news cycle with everyone else? I fully expect a state of play in the next week or two so that they can be the only one in the spotlight. Following that, Kebabs writes in and say, I only think this E3 is a loss to Sony if they don't have a large E3 style presentation later in the year. Sony previously has had the opposite issue in the past by having E3, Paris Games Week, and PSX. But I think if they can just do a state of play, PSX conference in December, that is on the same level of E3, then skipping out this year is not a problem at all. Janet, where are you at in terms of when we do see PlayStation? Because of course, PlayStation does have state of plays. PlayStation has had big events. Last year, we got, outside of state of plays, we got during June the big PlayStation 5 reveal event, and then we got a follow-up one in the fall. What do you think the plan is here? Do you think we're going to see PlayStation maybe later in the summer?
We will see it later in the summer because I feel like they lightly alluded to that with Horizon, didn't they? Was it a few weeks, a few months? I forget what they said for when we'd see Horizon.
They also
again,
alluded to it during the Death Stranding. Kojima alluded to like
you're right.
bigger
That's a good
kind
point.
of thing for the director's cut.
Yeah, so I'm thinking like combining that with the Death Stranding thing you just brought up, that it would be in a few weeks and it would have the Stranding and it would have Horizon. My big question with Horizon is when will we, which no one can really answer this because it's all speculative, but when will they know whether or not they can hit that holiday window? Because they mentioned the blog post casually, like, oh, it's probably holiday, but we don't really know. But I think based on that, we'd see like something in a few weeks with those two games, probably a few extra things. And I think as far as making it like E3 level, it's about like what they couch it as. Because usually with these like state of plays, they have like some form of a theme with them, or even with the PlayStation 5 reveal, we knew that was the PlayStation 5 thing. Okay, cool, this is what we're ready for. I don't know what they would call it to nod to the fact that's a big deal, but yeah, I think if they have an E3 level presentation, you can totally have that outside of E3 and have that still be this amazing thing. If they really show us like what holiday looks like and it's incredible, then they can just totally overtake this year.
Yeah. And I think PlayStation has a lot to talk about. Of course, the second half of this show is going to be us building our own PlayStation E3 conference. And there's so much that we have written on this doc. And I'm like, yeah, there's a lot PlayStation could talk about. Not just things we already know about, like Horizon, like God of War Ragnarok, but like what other studios are doing, what the partnered studios they have are doing, what studios like the Concrete Genie studio is doing, or what's going on with VR. They have a lot to talk about. And I think there's something powerful about being able to have a big presentation to shed light on what is the rest of this year and next year going to look like. Because if you remember, God of War Ragnarok was slated for 2021, right? Like Horizon Forbidden West is slated for 2021. Gran Turismo was slated. Actually, I'm not positive on that one. Maybe that's you're wrong. But they had so much of what they have announced was slated for 2021, which begs the question: what did 2022 look like? What does 2022 looks like? What does beyond that look like? Tim always talks about how he believes it's always good to have those games that are those big tentpole games that we look forward to, that are far flung in the future, that feel like they're forever away, but they are those shining beacons of games that you're going to get one day and they're going to be hype as hell. And PlayStation, I think, has that a bit with God of War Ragnarok, because of course that's a game that I know every PlayStation fan is probably looking forward to. But I think there's room to maybe announce a couple of those this year, right? Because the
Like a vague
PlayStation 5 goes
logo.
way beyond.
If you
Yeah,
could
with a
see
vague
any,
logo.
if you could see any vague logo reveal, what logo are you seeing?
Oh, I like this question. Honestly, I was gonna say Last of Us Factions, but I
Ooh.
want way more than a vague logo. I want
Yeah.
gameplay for that.
I'll take Last of Us 3 vague logo, because there was that story that I know IGN picked it up, but I forgot. It came from like a podcast, and I can't remember what podcast was talking to them about it, where they're like, "Oh, we have like a story drafted, but like who knows if this is gonna like become anything?" And I'm like, "Give it to me." Like it doesn't even, don't finish it, just give it to me now. So I think that would be at least a big deal.
I got a few that come to mind. I want a Naughty Dog new IP vague logo.
Yeah.
Just like give me a name and the Naughty Dog logo, and that's all I need to go off of. Give me that. Spider-Man 2. Give me a logo that represents what that game's gonna be, right? Like imagine half the logo is Peter Parker, the other half is Miles Morales in terms of like the energy of those suits. I think there's something cool you could do there that would get people hyped just off seeing a logo, and so I think that's another one. Dream, Metal Gear Solid, something Metal Gear Solid related that is a logo for that. Those are things that I would imagine are not imminent, and so I would understand when those not being ready to go anytime soon. But then I think putting those out there would be enough to build hype and make people go, "Fuck, this is the greatest place to play. Fuck, I am looking forward to this." And they are those unicorn games, as Tim Gettys calls it.
Yeah, chat mentioning Bloodborne 2, I think, is a pretty easy, exciting logo reveal. Like, what's nice, I feel like logo reveals, it has to be within two extremes would be the ideal. One extreme being we really know this IP and like it, like in a Spider-Man case, and the other one is like we don't know what this is at all, but it looks cool, but it's just a logo, so it's kind of weird. But yeah, like a Naughty Dog thing, new IP would be dope.
And I know people oftentimes hate the logo reveals, and I think I'm with that for the most part, but I do think there are games that make it fine. And usually those are the games where it's like, I believe this is actually going to come out. I believe God of War Ragnarok is going to come out someday. That's a game that I did not expect to get canceled. Spider-Man 2, I believe that's going to come out someday, right? A new Naughty Dog game, I believe that's going to come out someday. And maybe doing a new IP with a logo reveal might get a little bit more messy because things always iterate and new IPs don't always come to fruition. And so that gets a little bit iffy. But logo reveals for like the big unicorn games that I know it's going to exist one day, I think that inspires confidence. I think for me, that's the thing where I'm like, cool, I love this level of transparency, and I love that I know what my favorite studio is working on next, because that gives me something to look forward to.
I think too, like, it's about how you place it. Like, the logo reveal can be whack if it's just the logo and like if the whole showcase sucks, and then you're like, here, another game, but it's just a logo. That is a lot weaker. But when you have like something really strong, and then you throw in like a vague thing, it just kind of tops off the excitement. It's the presentation equivalent of a cherry on top of the sundae. You don't really need it. It's not really doing anything, but it's about the pageantry of it, and I think that would be really cool.
Janet, I think it's time to build our own PlayStation's show. But before we do, let us tell you about our sponsors. This show is brought to you by Honey. We all shop online, and we've all seen that promo code FieldTanis at checkout. But thanks to Honey, manually searching for coupon codes is a thing of the past. Honey is the free shopping tool that scours the internet for promo codes and applies the best one it finds to your cart. Honey supports over 30,000 stores online that range from sites that have tech and gaming products to popular fashion brands and even food delivery. Imagine you're shopping on one of your favorite sites. When you check out, the Honey button drops down, and all you have to do is click Apply Coupons. Wait a few seconds as Honey searches for coupons it can find for that site. If Honey finds a working coupon, you'll watch the prices drop. Kinda Funny loves Honey. Tim Gettys tells you all the time to click that dang Honey button. It saved him and many of us here at Kinda Funny plenty of money when we use Honey. Honey has found its over 17 million members over $2 billion in savings. If you don't already have Honey, you could be straight up missing out on free savings. It's literally free and installs in just a few seconds. And by getting it, you'll be doing yourself a solid and supporting this podcast. I'd never recommend something we don't use. Get Honey for free at joinhoney.com/kinda. That's joinhoney.com/kinda. We're also brought to you by Fitbod. Getting caught up in the same workout routine can get tiring. Don't get stuck doing the same workouts. Making progress towards the future you means overcoming new challenges. Fitbod creates a fitness program that continually adapts with new exercises and dynamic intensity that adjusts to how you're progressing, so you'll be challenged to meet your goals at your own pace. There's no perfect body that everyone can achieve, but what we can do is continually become a better version of ourselves. No workout is one size fits all. Fitbod creates a fitness program that continually adapts to you, so you stay challenged with new exercises, pacing, and intensity based on where you are and where you want to be. Kinda Funny knows Fitbod well. Gia and Tim's friend Danny uses it religiously. Fitbod understands that the path to achieving your best looks different for everyone. Fitbod creates a program based on your unique body, experience, and environment. Their algorithm uses data and analytics to help you build on your last workout to maximize your results. Whether you're exercising 3 days a week or twice a day, every workout is scientifically proven to be better than the last. Fitbod workouts are balanced to avoid overworking muscles with varied exercises to keep you sharp. No equipment? No worries. Fitbod has bodyweight routines for those looking to get fit at home or on the go. Fitbod is super easy to use and even has HD video tutorials to make learning new exercises a breeze. It integrates with other fitness and health apps like Apple Health, Fitbit, and Strava. Personalized training can be tough on a budget, but Fitbod is only $9.99 a month. That's $9.99 a month, or $59.99 a year. Sign up now and you'll get 25% off your membership. Pick up the pace on your fitness journey with Fitbod today, and your future self will thank you. Get 25% off your membership at fitbod.me/kfgames. That's 25% off at fitbod.me/kfgames. Last but not least, we're brought to you by Canva. Listen, design is hard. I'm talking about art design. Even making thumbnails in Photoshop can be hard for me sometimes, but that's why I'm excited to tell you about Canva. Kinda Funny loves Canva. Tim Gettys himself says that it's super dope and easy to use. It makes all different kind of design stuff. You just pick the styles you like and it does all the work. Super helpful for creators. Canva Pro is the easy to use design platform that has everything you need to design like a pro. Whether you're a professional designer or you're just getting started, Canva Pro can help you boost you and your team's productivity and creativity. It's a quick, easy, and affordable way to design whatever you need. No matter what you're creating and sharing, Canva Pro has everything you need in one place, including a collection of over 75 million premium photos, videos, audio, and graphics. Plus, Canva Pro comes with time-saving tools that simplify and speed up the creative process. You get all this and more in just one Canva Pro subscription. One of my favorite Canva features is how you can stay on brand. Preset your brand's fonts, colors, and logo for a unified look across all designs. There's no idea too big or too small for Canva Pro. Whether you're like me struggling to make video thumbnails, or you're an entrepreneur, or even a crafty mom, design like a pro with Canva Pro. Right now, you can get a free 45-day extended trial when you use my promo code. Just go to canva.me/kfgames to get your free 45-day extended trial. That's canva.me/kfgames. Canva.me/kfgames. And we're back, and it's time to talk about PlayStation's E3 2021 conference, at least what it should have been. Because, Janet, I have a write in here from AJ Shank who says, throughout the conferences and showcases, one thought has constantly come to mind for me. I wish PlayStation were here doing something. Well, AJ, we got you, because me and Janet, we're doing a fusion dance. We're doing a Dragon Ball Z fusion dance.
Which I don't know, again, which way are you?
We're both combining
you're right,
forces.
maybe, I think, Janet?
Yeah, like,
Yeah,
just choose a side. Is that good? Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect. Yeah. Boom.
Perfect.
We're one being, we're one mind now. We're here to organize what PlayStation's E3 press conference looks like for this year. Janet, I got this organized by 3 categories. All right. Number 1, the givens, the things that we know for sure would be at PlayStation's E3 press conference that did show up over the weekend, that didn't get to be because PlayStation weren't there. Number 2, stuff we saw elsewhere that could have showed up at PlayStation. And then 3, what we would have liked to have seen. And that is really, that's very much our hopes and dreams for a PlayStation press conference. And so starting with number 1, the givens, we're going to start off with Death Stranding coming to the PS5. Of course, this showed up at Keely's thing. I'm going to pull from Andrew Webster at The Verge, who writes about Death Stranding getting a director's cut on PlayStation 5. Hideo Kojima stopped by this year's Summer Games Fest to announce a surprise. Death Stranding not only coming to PS5, but it'll be an enhanced director's cut of the game. Unfortunately, there's no real detail about the new version, but an early glimpse hinted at some additional stealth elements, similar to Kojima's work on Metal Gear Solid franchise. Players can likely expect visual and performance upgrades as well. The director's cut is slated as coming soon, with a proper reveal in the coming weeks. Janet, first of all, where are you at with Death Stranding? Did you like Death Stranding when it originally came out? Second of all, what does the enhanced version or the director's cut do for you?
I actually still have not played it. I know, it's crazy. But at the time, I think Luigi's Mansion 3 was out, and I was doing that and working on the guide for that. And I was like, oh, I guess we don't need help with the Death Stranding guide. And I just did that and found all the gems. That's what I was doing during the time. And then after it came out, it was so hot and cold for people that I was really intrigued, but I just wasn't able to make the time for it. I also totally forgot I have the Death Stranding baby statue thing in my house because my boyfriend loves, like, I don't know, play all things PlayStation, so he has that, and he liked Death Stranding, so I live with that thing. So I'd like to play it so that this baby has more meaning to me. But also, like, my thing was when the PS5 came out, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna wait, because I have Death Stranding, I just haven't played it. And I'm gonna play it when an enhanced version comes out, if an enhanced version comes out. So this is what I've been waiting for, with the caveat of I don't really know what kind of enhancements they're doing. Like, I don't know if it's gonna be something like slow rolled, like what we're seeing with Last of Us 2, where they just did that big upgrade, but they still don't have, like, what I'm looking for is DualSense stuff. If that thing's not vibrating every 2 seconds, what did I pay for? Why am I spending my time doing this? It's 2021. Like, I don't need.
If I can't use the adaptive triggers to, like, feel out my balance and all that stuff, then what did you do this for?
It seems like, because I do obviously know a lot about the game, having just been in the space, and, like, it seems like such a good fit to just sort of enhance the wonkiness of it already, and, like, the rain and everything. Like, I think there's so many fun uses of that I'm really banking on that. If they have DualSense integration, I'm absolutely going to be all in on this. So I thought this was really cool because I really like when they're incentivizing you to play stuff that you could play, but why would you in this era? Because it's not like it's new. Especially because, like, people are always saying, like, and even in this Verge write-up, like, no shade, but whenever people say coming to PS5, no, there's backwards compatibility. Like, it's already on PS5. So you doing, like, a light update isn't quite enough to get me excited. But I am looking forward to it if they have something a little bit more layered that makes it feel like I'm having a unique PS5 experience, but with this older game.
It being a director's cut and it being Hideo Kojima wouldn't surprise me to see that they add new cutscenes or add a few more features and things like that. I think I would think it would be a bit of a substantial thing given Hideo Kojima's history when he does do things like Metal Gear, like the subsistence stuff. Like he does pretty good iterations on his games. And yeah, Janet, like, one, you made the right decision to not do a guide on Death Stranding, because I'm sure that would have driven you insane. And then 2, I only played like half Death Stranding, and so you're good. You're good. It's
Hell
fine.
Yeah, that's half more than a lot of people. So there you go. You're already ahead.
That's a fair point. I love that this is happening because I'm with you that I would love to go back to it and play a PlayStation 5 version of Death Stranding with all those bells and whistles. I think that's super awesome. I wouldn't be surprised if there was like a VR missions kind of thing where you had specific tailored missions in Death Stranding added in, because the trailer they showed kind of gave that energy to it a little bit of like new levels, and I think a VR missions type thing would make sense for that. And also you had the Metal Gear Solid references that you had in the trailer with him playing around with the box and basically messing around with it for a good minute in the trailer, which was fun.
Do you think that's going to be like a new SKU, a free update, a paid update? Where do you think it's going to land?
I think it's going to be a paid thing.
Okay. Like a paid thing, like I can have the base game and then pay for like this piece.
No, I think
I
it's
think
gonna be
like,
no. I think you're
thing.
gonna. I think
It's a
you're
new
gonna have to
SKU.
pay $70.
No,
I think you're gonna pay the full
I don't know
money.
about that one. I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't know. Maybe. I mean, if it's a
Yeah,
new SKU, I can
if it
get
was
a
just
physical version. I can
if
trade
it was
Pokemon
just Death
Snap. I don't
Stranding,
like that game. Can just kind of offset the price.
if it was just Death Stranding PS5, then I think there'd be a chance of a free upgrade. But it being a director's cut makes me think that it's going to be an entirely different SKU. And then it also being PlayStation, we saw what happened with Spider-Man Remastered.
Yeah, I can't wait to hear what this is. It's
Miles
gonna be
Morales.
awful. I'm so excited.
Yeah, but maybe it won't cost $70. Maybe it would be $50 because they know it's an older game and people might not show up at full price. But to save my own heart and speculation, I'm gonna say this will probably be $70. We also got Deviation Studios making a game with PlayStation. That was the other thing that happened at Summer Games Fest regarding PlayStation. I'm gonna pull from Igor at Engadget, who writes, "Former Call of Duty heads are making a new game for PlayStation. Two important individuals in the history of Call of Duty have founded a new studio. At Summer Games Fest, Dave Anthony and Jason Blundell, previously of Treyarch, announced the existence of Deviation Games. They also shared they're working on a new IP for PlayStation, but stopped short of detailing the project. Given the team's pedigree, you can probably expect a first-person shooter. Quote, we're drawing on what we've learned over our collective decades making games, but we're also out to make something fresh and brimming with innovation like you've never seen before," end quote. Anthony wrote in a post over on the PlayStation blog following the initial announcement. Quote, we're setting out to make a huge content-rich game with a focus on a lot of action and a lot of energy, end quote. Deviation Games is another big get for Sony. It was only in March that the company announced it was working with Haven, a studio founded by former Ubisoft and Stadia producer Jade Raymond, to fund a new original PlayStation game. Janet, does that get you hyped?
No, in the sense that I don't really do FPSs, so assuming it is one, I'm like, it's not really my cup of tea. I'll still probably check it out because I try to play everything. But I do like it in the sense of just expanding on things, and it falls under that a rising tide lifts all boats type situation. I think having more things to get excited about on PlayStation, even if they're not something that I'm excited about, is good for the brand and the company. So in that sense, I think it's cool. I do have to ask you, Blessing, what do you think of that logo for Deviation Games?
I like it, but it does look like it says dev at on.
Dev add-on or
Yeah.
DV at TR. Like, I'm like, suddenly I cannot read the word deviation.
Yeah, like I think they were onto something stylistically with it, but they should have had an editor that was like, actually no, people are gonna read this the wrong way. It doesn't look like deviation. There's a better way to do the same thing. Yeah, Barrett has it up right here. Yeah, no, it looks purely like dev at on, which
it's
maybe they could have done something with this though, right? Because like dev could have stood for developer, dev at onward, like they had like a slogan that reflected the dev at on thing. They could have done something slick, but no.
Yeah, around the V and the A,
it's
like my mind is doing like 5 different things. Where it's like I see the I, but then it's also like making a weird backwards N, but then also a W at the same time.
Ooh,
like my brain.
What's funny is I see another V. I see dev and then another V
to
the A.
This is a good pull right here. What do you all see in the chat?
What do you see when you? This is like the ink blot of logos.
Yeah, like
what do you
Rorschach,
see when you look at this? The Rorschach, yes.
Oh man, do you see two ladies looking at each other or a vase? Yeah,
exactly.
I see deviation games.
So those are the two things between Death Stranding coming to PS5 and Deviation Studios. Those are the two things that I think would be a given of this would be at a PlayStation presentation if they were at E3. Was there anything else you think would show up, or are you ready to move on to stuff that could have showed up at PlayStation?
That's probably it as far as like the guarantee ones that we definitely would have seen.
Okay. I see Barrett has a poll here that he's pulled up. Does Horizon come out this holiday? 71% of you said yes. And then now he's putting up a new poll. What do you see? Deviation or dev add-on? And so far, dev add-on is winning the poll. But to move on with stuff that we saw elsewhere that could have shown up at PlayStation, I'm going to start off with I'm going to call the Square Trio of games being Stranger of Paradise, Final Fantasy Origin, Babylon's Fall, and Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, 2 of these were kind of disappointing. And so maybe it
Unholy
was a good
trilogy.
thing. Yeah, like on paper, these three I think would have made a great fit for PlayStation. But when you actually look at the content of both Stranger of Paradise and Babylon's Fall, you start to get like, maybe I don't know, Chief. Babylon's Fall, I believe, is coming to PlayStation platforms as like a console exclusive, and so that would have made a lot of sense on that. But for what they had to show, didn't shine as well. Guardians of the Galaxy, though, for what that Square Enix showcase was, I could have easily seen the argument of don't have a showcase for Enix. Instead, like disperse stuff out and give Guardians to one of the big boys. Because Guardians, I think, actually does look pretty good. Guardians does look like a fun game, and I think could have had a bigger slash at a different presentation.
Guardians, for me, I don't think it looked good, but I also didn't think Marvel's Avengers looked good. And then when I played Marvel's Avengers, I thought it was maybe barely good, but mostly not good. So I think they like kind of, I mean, they do complement each other as the thing. Like I was, I had tweeted out that like, oh, this game doesn't look good. And Greg was like really into it. And a lot of people were tagging me like, oh man, 2 different takes at once. Like, what do I do? And I'm like, I guess you'll have to think for yourself, but I'm like, I some people did mention like, if you liked Marvel's Avengers, you probably liked what you saw of Guardians. And I think that does ring true because they do maneuver very similarly. And I think given like Marvel Avengers history with PlayStation, that would have made it a good fit thematically in that sense.
Yeah, and I'm somebody who I liked the single player of Avengers. I thought that was fine.
Solid.
It wasn't fantastic.
It was solid.
Yeah, it was solid. I felt
Would you
fell
main
off
in the
hard.
campaign?
I mean, you couldn't really choose, right? Like you basically
you
played
could.
whoever they gave you. Could you?
Sometimes there were story mandatory ones, but there were a lot of times you could. Like I was Iron Man as much as I could because Iron Man was the most powerful person in that game. Like you could just fly and just do whatever. But yeah, I thought the campaign was a lot better than I expected it to be. Like it was solid.
I think I played a lot of Miss Marvel in the campaign then because I liked her character the most for sure.
Yeah, she had
I
fun
guess,
traversal.
now that I think about it, I see where I remember playing as her a lot, and so that actually makes sense if I chose her and she was my favorite. And yeah, the traversal for her was fun. I always liked the run up, like the sprint jump where her leg would elongate as you would jump. It had a cool animation to it. But yeah, the idea that Eidos Montreal gets to make just a single player game and have cool ideas with it, for me, gives me confidence because if it's just single player Avengers, but without the multiplayer parts of that game holding it back, then I think it's gonna be a good game. I think that's gonna end up being a pretty good thing, and so I'm excited for that. Let's talk about Hades. Hades was shown off at the Xbox Game Showcase, and it is coming to Xbox Game Pass over there. Hades did also, after the Xbox Showcase, come out and say, hey, yeah, we are coming to PlayStation as well. And it's launching on August 13th for both PS4 and PS5. And they talked about how on PS5, you'll have it run better, do all that fun stuff that you love. Is that one for you that you'd feel would make sense at a PlayStation Showcase?
Yeah, I think absolutely. I mean, it's like a fire indie. It's a known quantity. Like at this point, we already know that Hades is an awesome game, and even if you don't think it is, like it's pretty critically acclaimed as a great game. I really enjoyed my time with Hades, and I think like it would fit at PlayStation really well, especially. I don't know offhand or if they've discussed or if it's out there if that game has a platinum, but if it does, that I mean, it's such like a repeat run and like a fun game, and then there's like after you beat it, there's like sort of more stuff to do there. Like I think that really lends itself to trophy hunting, and obviously Xbox has achievements, but I do feel like in terms of like gamer culture, achievement hunting isn't really talked about or like vibed with the same way trophy hunting is. I think just mainly because
yeah, I mean, Ray Narvaez would argue differently.
When you complete it, what do you even get? Like when you max out the score on Xbox, what's it called?
It's 1,000
gamer like a
cool or whatever.
Cool notification.
But what does it say? It just says 1,000 gamer score point? Like
it says like achievement achieved.
It says you did
nice,
it.
Cool sound.
Right? Like, and that's the thing. That's the problem. Like, who made it a hot song, right? PlayStation. Like, it's just cool. Platinum, simple, clean. You have the few ones. That's it. We all know what it's like. And I think that would be really cool on that stage. So yeah, I think that would have been an awesome get.
The get for Microsoft getting this on Game Pass, I think what kind of sours it a little bit. On the PlayStation side, of course, big get for Microsoft. That's dope as fuck that they're getting Hades on Game Pass. On the PlayStation side, though, it feels like they might have fumbled the bag a little bit. Of man, this would have been a great PlayStation Plus game if you guys made the deal. There's that balance there that I feel like is a bit lost on the PlayStation side in terms of Hades. Super excited it's coming to PlayStation though. Like Hades, a fantastic game that every single person should play because it's wonderful. But man, I feel like the bag was fumbled just a little bit there. And then for another one that did show up elsewhere, that could have been a really cool thing to show up on a PlayStation E3 stage. Elden Ring deep dive. Of course, we got the Elden Ring trailer reveal at Summer Games Fest, which makes sense and was a really cool thing for that. Over the days, we've been getting interviews with Miyazaki, who works on the game, talking about exactly what you can expect from the game and all this different stuff. I'm going to pull from Matt Kim over at IGN, who talks about how Miyazaki explained how the open world works. It goes like this. The more Miyazaki explains the world of Elden Ring, the bigger it feels. Beyond the main dungeons of the 6 domains, there are also a wide variety of catacombs and castles and fortresses which are interspersed throughout the map. While there are certainly overworlds that come to mind when hearing Miyazaki explain the map layout of Elden Ring, cough, Breath of the Wild, cough, this expansive design signals particularly exciting possibilities. But separating the world into 6 major domains that function as their own dungeons, while also creating a larger explorable world with off-the-beaten-path mini-dungeons, Elden Ring could feel like a truly open world that still keeps the level of map craftsmanship From Software is known for. And man, what I have loved if PlayStation had an E3. Summer Games Fest just got done having the reveal trailer, looked really cool, show some gameplay, all that fun stuff. If Miyazaki would sit down with PlayStation and be like, hey, this is what the breakdown of Elden Ring looks like. And of course, there would be that back and forth thing and conversation of, oh yeah, Elden Ring was revealed at Xbox. The report this time around is that Summer Games Fest was a nice neutral ground for them. It coming full circle to be cool. We showed up at Xbox, we showed up on neutral ground, we showed up on PlayStation. Could have been a fun, complete narrative to it, to showing off this game. But that's, I feel like, leaning into dream territory of what I would have wanted out of an E3 showcase.
I think though too, like something like Elden Ring, because it's such a big deal and it already has like such a distinctive atmosphere to it and all these like kind of expectations and feelings attached to it. It would have been great for that, which I mentioned this, later on for like things I want, like over the top pageantry. Like that's the big thing we've been missing from E3. Everyone's coming up here and they're just like, oh, like here's what's going on. And sometimes we have like goofy celebrity appearances and things, but like, there isn't like a cannon full of fire shooting out, or any of the dumb.
Where are the violins? Where's the PlayStation orchestra?
Where are the hanging freakers, or whatever the fuck they called them in Days Gone?
Where's the church? Where's the church from The Last of Us Part 2?
Like they bring out like a giant Elden Ring. You hear like a literal giant bell or something, like something. That hand thing comes out, like something there. And I think it would have been a fun time to like play up the pageantry element of it, whether it would be like, I don't know, we had plenty of musical stuff, so an orchestra would be kind of an obvious one, or just something like that could have been really cool to sort of set the tone and give it that like. It's funny because when these neutral games appear, people are always like, oh, well, I mean, it's not like you can't play other places. It's like, yeah, but what is the association? Like, it is all about appearances. Like, marketing is all about appearances. If I associate something with your brand, I'm not going to remember that. Like, I didn't even remember that Hades was, out on PlayStation until I had dug into the blog post and saw it. Like, what I saw was Xbox, Hades, and I thought, that's all I thought. That's all I walked away with from that day. So I think those things do really become significant and can drive things home for people.
Mm-hmm. Really quick in the chat, someone said like nobody was there to kind of counterpoint of like that big pageantry. I would counterpoint with Summer Game Fest kickoff of like you had Japanese breakfast there and Weezer there, and they did performances with nobody in the audience, and it was still like a fun time. It still had that kind of like more like E3 vibe from it. So that's my counterpoint to your
the celebrity stuff on there.
Yeah.
They also have celebrity stuff in that, even though the celebrity stuff I don't really care about it. I just like I feel like the stupidity is what makes it E3. You know what I mean? And I mean that with love in my heart. Like, I enjoy seeing that. Like, I want to see a car roll out on stage that's made of Lego. Like, I want to, like make it feel like, okay.
Some dope ass shit. Give me some fucking hype.
This was a dumb thing that we're going to have to expense later. And it's going to look stupid on our tax returns. Like, that's what I'm looking for.
Now, Janet, those were the givens that would have been at PlayStation E3 and the stuff we saw elsewhere that could have shown up at PlayStation. Let's talk about what we would have liked to have seen, the big hopes and dreams for a PlayStation presentation if they were at E3. I'm going to let you take the stage on this one, Janet. Where do you want to start?
PlayStation stage. Let's just start with the way it's listed, because like, why not? I can kick it off with this is an obvious one and not super exciting, but Ratchet & Clank. It just came out. It's a big deal. This would be a great time to just, throw up a little sizzle reel of like the review scores, what people were saying, digging into what it means as a next-gen game. I mean, I think they've, especially with the conversations around Horizon and God of War being like also on PS4, they named Ratchet and Returnal as the big examples of taking advantage of next-gen hardware. I think especially since a lot of people can't get that next-gen hardware, spending a little bit of time and showcasing what they mean by that, sort of driving that point home. And I think it might be interesting too to talk about like features that are unique to being on the PS5, even though I know, Blessing, you had some beef with the game help in Ratchet and Clank, which
I did.
I also agree with that. Which was your issue with it?
It just didn't have enough of the side stuff. Like looking for the Cragger bears in Ratchet and Clank, like those that didn't show up on the game help. Quite a few things I was looking for in terms of collectibles just weren't showing up, and that was pissing me off when I was trying to get the platinum. And my whole even things like there was some of the side objectives. There's one side objective on one of the planets that is right around on the mountable flying creature and go and collect a bunch of stuff. And game help didn't help with any of that, especially when you get to a point where you're like, how the fuck do I get to this place up here?
How do I get up here? Like, I can't fly up here. What's going on here?
Yeah, how the fuck do I get up here? And I had to text Greg, and Greg was like, ignore it, keep playing, it'll open up. And that's what I did. And I was like, oh, well, this wasn't as obvious.
I did that just last night, Blessing. It was so frustrating.
Yeah, it's so frustrating.
You think you can already do it, but like it has to be opened, but it's open through something that you have no way of like perceiving or knowing about, so you just keep going. I hate that
when
feeling.
I tell you I was Shadow of the Colossusing the fuck out of a structure in Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, trying to get to a collectible that's on the top that was on the top of it, and I was breaking geometry. I almost made it up there. Like I almost made it up there just by like trying to game the system. And
I love that.
Yeah, it was just one of those things where it's like, no, you just gotta collect the rest of the stuff, and then you come back, and then it'll tell you how you can get those things. Not great. I wish game help with stuff like that.
I think still, even though it was, flawed game help, I think highlighting that could be like an interesting angle, especially in terms of like, or even just kind of building on that and highlighting what kind of upgrades, like quality of life upgrades have come to like PlayStation 5, what we can expect in the future. They spent some time on the PlayStation blog recently diving into game help, and they mentioned Ratchet and Clank, and they also mentioned like, oh, it's, we're still in the beginning stages of this. So I'm hoping, things like what you mentioned will either get, fixed, or maybe have at least some explanation to like how those things are chosen, or how you can maybe opt into some things and not others. But I think using Ratchet and Clank as a jumping off point for what does next gen on the PS5 mean would be a great use case for them.
I think it would be a great example of like, hey, this is what PlayStation does. We released your Ratchet and Clanks. You just got Returnal. You just got a Spider-Man Miles Morales. I like the idea of painting a story up till now. PlayStation 5's been out for 7 months. Here's where we've been so far. And I think that would be such a strong way to go from the beginning, and then have the presentation being about, cool, that's PlayStation 5 so far. Here's what to look forward to in the future. I think that would be a really cool thing. One I want to bring up, I think coming out and talking about PS Plus and PS Now in a very strong and confident way would be an awesome thing to do in a presentation like this. Restating the vision and the pitch for PlayStation Plus, because again, we talk about competition all the time. I know people are probably sick about hearing the words Xbox Game Pass on this PlayStation podcast, and so I apologize for bringing them up. But when we talk about why PlayStation does the things they do, when we talk about how you make decisions in terms of how to present your brand and do all these things, you kind of have to bring up the competition and what they're doing good, so your grow areas. And I think what Xbox does fantastically is state their vision when it comes to their services. For PlayStation, I think they've kind of stumbled with that. I think that's the thing that they could do better, because PlayStation Plus is still really good. It's still pretty fantastic, especially when you look at what PlayStation Plus has been so far during this generation. When you talk about 2021 on PlayStation Plus, you're talking about Maneater, you're talking about Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Greedfall, Control Ultimate Edition, Concrete Genie, Destruction All-Stars, Maquette, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Remnant from the Ashes, Farpoint, Oddworld, Soulstorm, Days Gone, Zombie Army 4, Dead War, Wreckfest, Battlefield 5, String of Deep, Operation Tango, Star Wars Squadrons, Virtual Fighter 5, Ultimate Showdown. The amount of those that came to PS Plus day one at their launch is impressive by itself, but even outside of that, that's an impressive lineup for that. I think as PlayStation, you come out and reiterate that, right? Like, hey, we are thinking about you guys in the way that we treat PS Plus, in the way that we have PS Plus collection for those who get a PS5 with PS Plus, in the way that we have PS Now, which I think, again, you got to restate whatever the fuck your vision is with that thing, because people do not look at that thing as like a super strong service. I think the people that use it are fine with it and probably enjoy it fine, but I think for what that is, you got to make it stronger. You got to beef it up in some way. I understand not wanting to put your first party stuff in there, but what if you did put PlayStation Indies in there day and date? What if you did put your partnered games in there, like Returnal, or what Deviation Games is working on? What if you found a way that you could entice people to fall into that service? Or what if you just bundled it in with PS Plus to strengthen that? I think coming out and really stating a case for that would be such a dope thing to do.
So you kind of already touched on this like a second ago, but I have a couple follow-up questions. One, do you currently have PS Now?
No.
Okay, two, have you ever had PS Now? Or either of you? Like, what's your PS Now history?
I had it like years and years and years ago. I got it because I wanted to play like Uncharted 3 or something in like 2015
Nice.
or 14. And I used it and I was like, nope, this is not a great way to play this game. And I don't think I revisited it since. I might have like gone for like a month here and there to try out old
if
games.
You're like someone listening to this who happens to also be toxic, one, hello, and also goodbye, hopefully. But two, like, one, like those people might say, oh, like, how can you be on a PlayStation podcast and not have that? But I think that's actually a testament to the fact that PS Now is just not that enticing of a thing. Like, that would never be the case if this was like, if you flip it on, if you go on the XCast side, I'm sure all those guys either have Game Pass Ultimate.
Oh yeah, they all probably have Game Pass Ultimate.
Yeah,
they probably have like 3 years plus of Game Pass.
Even if they don't have it, they probably have had it a lot. Like, and even me as someone who like is just a general gamer, like I've had Game Pass Ultimate more months than I have not had it. And that has to do with the fact that it's just not that appealing of a service. I think the fact that it doesn't even get talked about and when it gets new entries is very telling. Because even when it has stuff that's cool, it's like, yeah, but it's PS Now. So like it kind of reminds me of that vibe of when stuff comes to Stadia. It's like, okay, I don't care because we're not going to play it there.
Seeing the words Marvel's Avengers coming to PS Now should be an exciting thing. And I think for some it was an exciting thing. But it definitely kind of, for me, I looked at that and I was like, oh, that's cool. And then I moved on and didn't think about it since. Meanwhile, I'm on my Xbox, Dishonored is coming to Xbox Game Pass and it's boosted. And I'm over here like, fuck, I'm going to download that and try it out. Like, I think there are so many efforts that need to be put into PlayStation Now to really make that thing shine the way that it could shine, especially if you do want to make it a showcase of the catalog of current gen games that are on there, but then also your back catalog because you do have PS3 stuff on there as well. Find some ways to make it dope as fuck. Boost the games.
I think
that are
too,
PS3
like
games that are on
PS
people
now. And people in the chat are mentioning, like someone mentioned right now, PS Now library is better than Game Pass, in my opinion. And like, you know what? Let's say that it is, right? Let's just say, sure, like though you put that list of games, they're better games overall. That doesn't really matter because it's about getting me excited about the service and what's to come, and also thinking about what my use case is. You could have the greatest library of all time if it's not for the right price point, if it doesn't have the right cadence, it's not going to do me anything because I'm not going to quit everything I'm doing and just spend my time going to the library. So like that's not, how anyone lives. So you have to kind of have that ebb and flow. And I think what works with Game Pass so well is that it does have that day and date. And we already know that PlayStation is not going to do that with Now. So it does put Now in this weird floating area where it's like, okay, what is this for? So I think, to bring it back to what you mentioned, the idea of maybe anchoring it with indies, it needs some form of anchor because right now it just feels like random games that feel old that I probably already own the service. And it's like, okay, well, that's not going to get me hyped. And for an extra price point, when we have so many services, it's like, okay, what do I really need this for? And that I don't think they've had a great answer to that question. I do think bundling would be a really strong thing, even though it is biting the Xbox style. I mean, the Xbox thing is smart. I've had Ultimate more than I've had regular Game Pass, even though I'm not necessarily taking advantage of what Ultimate provides over, base Game Pass, but it was a good enough price point that I didn't really read the fine print too much or care about how much I was optimizing it because it sort of solved all my problems at once.
Yeah, I think this generation too is making it a bigger thing for gamers in the conversation of value. Like value is becoming such a big point of contention for people. PlayStation games are moving up or have moved up to $70, right? Like that's a big thing. And that when you look at what's happening across the pond, right? Like the competition are finding ways to help fight against that or help gamers find ways into playing those games that they want to play without it being like a difficult thing, right? Like Nintendo's Nintendo, right? So those games are $60. They're not moving up to $70, I would think, anytime soon. Xbox has Xbox Game Pass, right? Like you have sales in Epic Games Store and really cool selections there all the time. PlayStation, I feel like hasn't done much in terms of finding good ways to give value toward players, right? I'm down to spend $70 on Ratchet and Clank because it's Ratchet and Clank, but whenever I tweet out my reviews or anything for Eternal or for Ratchet and Clank, you should see the amount of replies and the amount of quote tweets I get that are about, oh, but it's $70. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. $70 is a lot of money. $70 means a lot to a lot of people. And I think there's something that needs to be done on the PlayStation side to at least ease that up a little bit, give people memberships that make sense.
as far as marketing, people have also mentioned in chat, which is the conversation we've been having for a long time and probably will have until you guys finish your time capsule 7 years from now and get some answers. But I think even just bringing up PlayStation Now more, people are like, oh no, it's really good, it's different now, and maybe it is, but like if you don't make me care about it, I'm not going to care about it. And mentioning stuff like, if you are going to market it as these random old games you might already have, bring it up when you're talking about the new IPs. Can I play, I think God of War might have gotten added to PS Now at some point. Maybe. Let's pretend that's true. Like, that could be brought up when you're talking about Ragnarok as a way to kind of like get into the franchise or something like that. I think they need to kind of like, make it feel like it is filling a need. Like Game Pass fills a need in terms of, one, you have a cool library, and two, day and date is a huge need. You tell me I can pay this and just have the game already. I don't have to worry about, I don't have to ask myself, is it worth $70? Is it worth $60? Would it be nice if we didn't have to have this conversation? Sure, but we live in a capitalistic society where the truth is, for some people, a good game isn't enough to have them spend $70. It has to be transcendent. It has to be this other thing. We all have our own lines. And I think, for a lot of people, Game Pass removes that initial question and lets them try a lot of games they might not have tried otherwise. So that does, fix a problem that they have. I think what you mentioned, I don't know if you brought it up already, but the idea of expanding the PS Plus collection, I think is a really good one, because it does, again, that fills a need. Like, you're new to the ecosystem or you missed a few things. I think adding to that would be super appealing. And I really hope they do. I don't know that they will, but like, I'm really waiting for them to do something with that.
Yeah, PS Plus collection, I think would be such a cool thing if they found a way to expand it with 10 games at a time or something along those lines. Because again, I think it's all about finding ways to give your audience value and let them hop into the dope and amazing games they have on your platform. Like you want to get people in, and right now for people on the PlayStation side, right, like things are costly, games are expensive, and I don't think PlayStation Now and PS Plus are competing enough against what the competition is doing. I think PS Plus is at least trying a little bit with some of the really good offerings, all the ones that I listed earlier in the show, right? Like those are good offerings to have on PS Plus. Those are incredible offerings even, but I don't think it's enough. I think you got to do more.
Just a quick thing. God of War 2018, I don't think is on here, but the rest of the God of War games are. And my takeaway from you can play God of War Ghost of Sparta. Really exciting.
Hell yeah, let's go.
My thing, I think this is how you rebrand PS Now. You call it PS Plus, and you just dissolve it into PS Plus, and that's how you do it. You figure out how to fucking download PS3 games, because those are the only games that are not downloadable. That was an update that came out of PS Now a couple years after, was that you could download PS4 and PS2 games, so you don't have to like constantly be streaming those. I think being able to download games from 2 generations ago at this point, it's really exciting, because I think there's a lot of gamers our age who have a lot of nostalgia for that generation. So I think that's something that they got to figure out eventually. And then just be a little more on the up and up on like more current games being added. Like I know like Witcher 3 is on there, which is cool. I know Avengers got added for a little bit, but like if Avengers is like your kind of main selling point right now, like that's not great. Where like Game Pass has almost the entire Bethesda catalog, and so like I am mainly a PlayStation player, and I am more excited about Game Pass, and I think about getting a Series S every couple months, because of like, man, the Game Pass library.
It looks adorable.
It is great. I just don't have any more room for consoles in my setup. So
also, I think the bundle should be called PS Plus Plus, just to make it confusing.
Fuck yeah. And so yeah, like I love Game Pass on PC, but like the lineup of Game Pass on console is really great. So I think there are just little tweaks here and there. I think you get rid of the PlayStation Now branding and just put it all under
like
PlayStation
a love
Plus.
It's like a love it or list it situation for those people who are like watch basic house shows like me. It's like, okay, well, we could get rid of PS Now, or we could just fix it up and we take down this wall, really you can make it open concept. I think it just needs a little bit of sprucing up, because there are really good things in there, and I think a lot of people do care about having access to older titles too. Like, I'm not trying to discount older stuff, but like, it's not really going to move the needle in the same way, but I think that'd be cool.
To continue with our fake PlayStation E3 2021 press conference that we're putting together here, another one would be Gran Turismo 7. This is one that you added to the list. Doing a trailer with a confirmation of 2022. I think that could be really cool.
Yeah, well, I believe the 2022 part is confirmed, but that's all they have. So at least getting a closer window would be nice. And even though I know that's another game that falls into the it's on PS4 and PS5 situation, I think it could still be a nice showcase. Driving games tend to look really pretty. And I think, it's not exactly like a direct competitor to Forza necessarily, but I think having part of the stage is having diversity in genre. And even though I'm personally not like a Gran Turismo player, it'd be cool to see stuff like that and have like a wider spectrum of games showcased.
Next up here, we got something with Call of Duty, which I think is a really interesting one. This is one that you added to the list, and
Yep.
I want to bounce off of because I think, PlayStation historically during their E3 usually is partnered with Call of Duty in some way. Call of Duty in the recent years, though, has gotten interesting because they're not showing up at this E3. The reason being is that they want their next Call of Duty Vanguard, to be revealed through Warzone, which is such a fascinating concept. But with that, right, I wouldn't be if PlayStation did have an E3. I think it could be a strong move to have that tease happen at the PlayStation E3 event, and then the follow up would be a Warzone thing, right? Because I think for PlayStation it would be such a strong move to fight back against the competition when it comes to first person shooters. Losing out on Bethesda third party games, I think, is a little bit of a dent in terms of what the first person shooter output is on PlayStation. Of course, you still got the cross platform stuff that people are going to love. You still have your Fortnites, you still have your Apexes, you still have Battlefield. The next one's coming to PlayStation as well, right? Like, you still have those, but I think trying to build the message of, hey, we're a great place for shooters as well, is a strong message. Would be a strong message for them. I think you have Deviation Studios, which may be working on a first-person shooter for you. You have Firewalk Studios as well. Like, I think there's ground to be gained there. That's going to take a lot of work, but being able to take ownership of Call of Duty, I think, would go a long way there. And even if it was, here's a drop of Call of Duty Warzone content, and then here's the title of Call of Duty Vanguard, because I don't think that's been officially revealed in any form. I think it's only been reported. Here's Call of Duty Vanguard with the logo, and come back later in the summer for the full reveal. I think that could have been such a cool thing.
Yeah, I think for sure. I think it falls in that same category of stuff that's like sort of niche, but also immensely popular. So you do want to get those audiences. And I think in the same vein, like where were the sports sims this year? Like, I feel like there wasn't really much talked about it on that. And I feel like traditionally a lot of times with FIFA, we do see that more on like Xbox's stage, or obviously during an EA Play or something like that. That kind of, takes the spotlight. But I feel like having anything with that would have been a good play for them this year had they had a conference.
I see a poll was dropped in chat asking, do you have PlayStation Now? Currently, with a bit over 100 votes in, 10 people say yes, they do have PlayStation Now. 117 people say no, they do not have PlayStation Now. That is an ongoing poll. Feel free to keep voting if you're in chat.
And 10 of the
right
people
now,
that have it,
live.
5 of them are lying. So I just...
But yeah, I think you make a good point about the sports sims. Of course, EA Play is going on later in the summer, and so they're not present to have that. And we didn't see anything for what the next NBA 2K is from 2K. And so there is the absence of that. I wouldn't be surprised if PlayStation did have a conference, we see maybe one sports game pop up, because that's never a secret, right? Like, EA's not sitting there like, don't show the sports yet. Like, we gotta wait.
And no one knows.
Don't let it be on PlayStation stage. We got to have it our own thing. I don't think that would be the case, right? I think they would be fine with letting other companies, especially the big first party ones, show off that. I think the question would be, would PlayStation want to show that off?
I think
which
the thing is, though,
maybe,
too, with sports stuff, like, I've been wondering, and there's a little bit of integration, I think, with FIFA and the DualSense, but I really want to see them like lean into that more. I was gonna say kick up, but I'm like, oh my god, such a bad soccer pun. But like, I think the angle could be, what is different about playing this on our platform versus the others, because essentially it's like different controller preferences. But I think leaning into like the DualSense would be a really strong play for something like that, and could make it justified on, oh, well, here we're focusing on that element, and then at something like EA Play, it's a lot more generalized.
Next up in our PlayStation E3 2021 conference made by the Janet Garcia Blessing Connection, we got an update on the PlayStation Indies. This is the big one for me, because PlayStation Indies are... I think they want PlayStation Indies to be such a big thing for them. And so far, I think they've shown them off pretty well, especially between the original PlayStation presentation we got last June and then the fall presentation. Oh no, I just spilled water. I think that's been such a big thing for them.
Do you need paper towels? No water actually. Are you okay?
No, I'm good.
Okay?
I'm good. I drank most of the water out of the bottle, thankfully, and so there's still some left. Hold on.
Okay. You're looking
just down.
You're looking
great.
Just
down.
You're
oh, thank God. Oh, thank God. For a second, the funny thing too is that it fell and then it fell right toward my Switch, and I was like, "This is not how my Switch dies."
Man, come
in the
tomorrow.
middle of a
We're all going to
PlayStation
be ordering
podcast.
new Nintendo Switches, right, Blessing?
Oh God, I hope so, man. I hope so. I don't count on it though. At this point, I don't count on it. But like I was saying, right? Has made a big deal of PlayStation indies as of late. You have games like Oddworld, Soulstorm, and Maquette and Bugsnax be PlayStation indies, and then also come out day and date on PlayStation Plus, which have been big moves for those games. But then alongside those, you have games that they've talked about like Goodbye Volcano High. You have Jet the Far Shore. You have Solar Ash. Chicory, A Colorful Tale just came out for them, and it's been getting incredible reviews. You have Puzzling Places, which they've talked about. You have Tribes of Midgard has shown up multiple times over the last weekend, and so maybe that's not one you need to give an update on. But there's plenty to work with in terms of PlayStation indies and what people are excited for. Stray being another one that I see people talk about all the time. Like people are hyped for that. That would be having a PlayStation indie section where they go hard with that. I think would be amazing, especially because when we talk about E3, we're talking about a stage. We're talking about a place to show things. PlayStation first party, I understand totally why they're like, fuck that. We're just gonna have our own thing where we show this stuff off. But I think PlayStation indies, they would be benefited so well by showing up in a PlayStation E3 conference and having that section where it is, hey, for the next 10 minutes, we're going to show you some really cool games that are coming to PlayStation and you can get them on PS Plus. I think there's power there that is being missed out on. And I think that would make for a great addition to a PlayStation E3 fake 2021 conference.
Yeah, like when Shuhei showed up, I'm like, it should have been, on the PlayStation stage. That would have been a really cool, like, way to, I guess, if we're dragging and dropping things from other conferences, like that felt very much like it would have been at home at a PlayStation presentation.
Yeah, exactly. And also, I forgot to mention even Kena Bridges Spirits.
Kena.
I think that could have Kena
Even
Bridges
if they
Spirits.
presented, we would know for sure.
If they would talk about that damn game, I know how to pronounce it. I would love another trailer that is more a deep dive into what the story is. You know, like they've had a few trailers so far, and I am not at the point yet where I'm tired of seeing it. I'd be down to continue seeing Kena Bridges Spirits. I know they actually showed up at the thing, an earlier event this weekend.
They were at something on Friday or something.
Tribeca. Right? I think it was Tribeca.
Yeah.
And so maybe that could have been a PlayStation if there was a PlayStation event.
As far as like small, like, because usually E3, we think of the big deal things that show up, but I also think of what the small filler for fun, cutesy stuff would be. And I think Sackboy: A Big Adventure having like some form of costume updates, like they're kind of not constantly mentioning it, but every now and then they'll like periodically be like, oh, here's a new costume that you can do. And a lot of times it is tying in or playing up, an existing IP or something else they're promoting. So I think doing one of those there, maybe doing a little statistics flex with like random stats that don't really matter, how many orbs were collected over the whole time or anything like that, would be fun. And that is one of, again, when we think of staples at PlayStation, that's certainly one, especially when we think of what was there during that launch window of the PS5. I think it's good to kind of bolster that one up.
Yeah, a couple things. First, going back to indies for a second, we talked about Xbox and how they've done a good job of owning the games that are coming out on Xbox Game Pass and their platforms over the next year. And you talk about things like The Ascent, you talk about 12 Minutes, you talk about a lot of those cool looking indie games that we all want to play. Again, like going back to PlayStation indies, I feel like you have the chance to build out that library and really color what this fall looks like. Kena Bridge of Spirits can be a tentpole PlayStation game this fall. Not tentpole in terms of it's God of War or Horizon, but tentpole as in, for the PlayStation audience, we have a calendar that we look forward to, and Kena Bridge of Spirits can be a shining star on that calendar. I think that's the thing you want to do, and so I'd like to see them do that. But then, going back to Sackboy: A Big Adventure, I think to your point, I think you make a very good point in terms of flexing stats about Sackboy: A Big Adventure and turning that more into a thing. It could be a cool idea if Sackboy: A Big Adventure was treated a little bit more like a live service game instead of a one and done thing, because they've added a few costumes so far. They've added costumes to tie into other games. What if that was just always an ongoing thing? Wherever we get a new big PlayStation title, you get a Sackboy costume for it, even the little ones, right? What if there was a Kena Bridge of Spirits costume for Sackboy? What if there is a Deathloop costume for Sackboy or a Ghostwire Tokyo costume for Sackboy that continue to happen? And even if you want to go real hard with it, right? Like drop new levels so people feel enticed to go back to that game, because it is a good game, and I think you can entice people that didn't show up for Sackboy because they look at it and they're like, oh, that's not my thing, and also I got Miles Morales to play. I think you can make the argument for people later on to come back and play Sackboy, because again, it is a good game, and I think there could be something there in terms of building an audience for that thing. So by the time you get to the point where maybe you want to release a new Sackboy, you then have twice the audience or double the audience or however many people that have signed on since the last game.
Yeah, for sure.
Another one that you added here would be Returnal, which I want to know what's your pitch on Returnal at E3.
Honestly, I would just maybe some additional content or some type of like challenge. Again, I think it's would be another stats flex thing. And for me, the idea of having Returnal at E3 would be very similar to like why Ratchet and Clank would be there, because they're already existing games, they're already out there. But just to really, I think, like, parse down or focus in on these games that are the only true, no asterisk showcases of PS5 power, which again, that's their language, not mine. They discussed when they mentioned like, hey, having games that are only on PS5, they're like, this is very intentional because it does this one specific thing, and this can only happen on PlayStation 5. So I think the more they discuss that, make it not just justified, but also exciting to people on the outside looking in. I do think obviously Returnal has less star power than something like Ratchet and Clank, but I am seeing a lot of people with like the releases of games like Returnal and Ratchet and Clank sort of turn their head and go, "Oh man, I don't have this, and I feel like I'm missing out on it. It makes me want the console, the platform more." Obviously, that has other issues with the availability, so I'm not going to pretend like all those needs can be met, but you still do want to drive that interest and sort of explain what it means to take advantage of something like the PS5. And I do think that it was I think a game like that by its nature lends itself well to things like DLC or additional content because of like the procedural generation aspect of it and how it sort of shuffles around. But yeah, so I think that'd be a cool one to kind of reignite the spark of that game, which sort of came and went as most things do, but I think it could get additional shelf life if you do a little bit of support for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, bouncing off of that, I think it'd be a strong move to reiterate those kinds of partnerships because they've done a good job in building the PlayStation Studios brand and making that a thing that doesn't only mean PlayStation first party. That means the partnerships. That means giving our IP or creating new IP in conjunction with studios like Housemarque. I think if PlayStation had an E3 stage coming out and being like, hey, as a reminder, we have Haven Studios with Jade Raymond. We have Firewalk Studios working on a new original multiplayer IP. And we just added Dev Studios to the mix. I think there would be a lot of power in that because we talk about PlayStation first party and we talk about, we're going to get more Last of Us probably. We're going to get more Uncharted probably. We're probably going to get more Ghosts. We're going to get Spider-Man. We're going to get the games that we know and love. But reiterating that there is experimentation going on the platform via these new smaller studios that are working on a AAA level, I think would be such a really cool thing to nail down the fact that you are going to continue to see different types of games like Returnal was. Returnal was a or not first party. It was a PlayStation Studios and I guess technically first party IP AAA game that was a roguelite by Housemarque. That's a fucking cool ass thing. Returnal was a dope ass game. Still my game of the year so far.
Wow.
I think being able to come out off the success of Returnal and reiterating, hey, you know how much you loved Returnal? That's what we're doing with Haven, Firewalk, and Deviation would be a really cool thing.
I think too that's a good time to give some like of the classic straight to cam dev diary type things. I mean, I know sometimes people can kind of glaze over those because it's like I think the big action is still the gameplay trailers and those reveals, but I think in terms of pacing, it's always good to have like those little bit of breaks and also like to give devs a chance to like have a stage and a platform. I mean, again, I know sometimes we can sort of gloss over that as people that are looking for the next big thing to be excited about, but those are big moments for a lot of those developers and are really meaningful. And I think that itself has value. I think sometimes we forget that value for a company is more than just showing us more things to buy. It also comes back to how they treat their employees and their team and getting to have some of those people on stage or be in that video. Like those might be some of the highlights of those people's years. So, like, yes, it's not a big flashy gameplay trailer, but that still adds a lot of value to the brand as well.
Yeah, I would love if PlayStation did more to put faces to the brand. I would love a sit down with like folks at Insomniac now that we're fresh off of Ratchet to talk about, yeah, dude, making Ratchet, we had to like do this, and this, but at the end of the day, we killed it and like we did it with a great work environment, all that stuff. I think that would be a great conversation. I think having folks who worked on Returnal be able to speak to the audience in that way would be such a cool thing. We also got new DualSense colors. I think that would be a perfect thing to have.
It's a shot in the dark. I'm like, just more stuff. I mean, where do you land on the DualSense colors that were revealed? Because we had that like, I mean, they had funny names, but there was like basically red and then was it black? And then there's just
red and
white one.
Red and black. I guess maroonish, crimson.
Yeah,
red and black. It's like a wine red,
Yeah. Are
Yeah,
y'all satisfied with
yeah.
those colors? And then what colors would you want to see next?
I think these colors are dope as fuck. I love these colors a lot. I still need to get one. I don't know what other colors I'd want. I definitely want more, but I'm not creative enough. Like these would have been
Maybe like
these would have been the colors I suggested if PlayStation came to me.
maybe like
Yeah,
a
so I'm set.
PS1 nod could be cool, especially like, pure or something that's like anniversary or history based, like if you did like that PlayStation 1 gray or something.
Yeah, I guess
With
like a
like
dark blue. A dark blue could be
dark blue,
cool.
yeah, like I'm thinking of like how to emphasize their brand. I think adding blue would be a good one too.
Or
And I'm
doing
still like
customizable options too.
I was
Like,
literally just about to say that, like,
yeah.
especially in the world where Xbox's design labs has gone quiet for maybe forever. But also, you have to ask yourself: did Xbox go quiet on that because maybe it was one, maybe not as profitable as they thought it would be, or two, too much of a headache? Whenever someone's not doing something, you have to ask: is it because it hasn't been thought of, or because it's a bad idea? So I do
Hmm.
wonder what the flow of that looked like, because it seemed like such a cool idea. I know a lot of
Janet, I
people
gotta
loved
stop
it.
you and say that was a very profound thing you just said. That was really
I'm
good.
constantly thinking of that. Like, for whenever you have an idea, ask yourself, did no one else think of this, or is it a little stupid? You can still do it
Mhm.
anyway, like live your life and like make your art and stuff, because I'd be doing like weird content all the time. But yeah, that is the question to ask.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's still a good thing for the audience, right? To have a design labs type thing. I find it hard to believe that PlayStation would do it with the DualSense because the DualSense is such a precious piece of technology to them. Xbox I think would be more willing to do it because they like giving the audience choice in that way. And
Yes.
from the audience side, who knows how profitable it was? From the audience side, the audience loved it. And yeah, I would love to have some sort of thing like that for PlayStation, but I don't have the confidence that they'd do it anytime soon, sadly. We also got the Bethesda duo with Deathloop and Ghostwire Tokyo, of course, at a PlayStation presentation. You got to give those trailers. You got to give those trailers. And I want to know more about Ghostwire Tokyo, specifically a release date.
Yep.
Because when the fuck am I getting that game?
I also
Uh,
had on here a long shot,
hmm.
God of War Ragnarok. Now, I still don't even know how I feel about this as a pitch, but also this is all theoretical, so it doesn't affect any actual company because it's just two people talking on a podcast. So it would be God of War, a pre-rendered, simple, super vague teaser, more than a logo, but less than like anything too significant, just enough to sort of, I think, I don't want to say that they lost any good faith, because I don't know anyone who's suddenly like, oh no, the game's not going to come out or the game is going to be bad. I feel like that has not been the conversation around it. But I think getting a little bit of a hint at what's to expect, or just how like beautiful or over the top or exciting this is, could help sort of remind people of the new or updated like timeline cadence of these things, where okay, we will get Horizon at some point soon, maybe holiday, maybe later, and God of War will be that one next thing. So I think it gives us something a little bit more concrete to look at with it, that could I think get people really excited and interested, and sort of, I guess, alleviate any potential
Yeah.
wariness anyone might have, given the whole, hey, you're not going to see this for a while. I think when you combine, you're not going to see this for a while, with you've only seen a logo, it's a little awkward. So kind of smoothing that out would
Yeah.
be nice.
I mean, I mentioned earlier, right, the unicorn games and how God of War, I think, kind of fits as one of those. I think in a world where God of War is coming out in 2022, it's about time that we see some kind of tone setter and we get an official name reveal. I think that would be the big thing, right? You
Yeah.
get Kratos maybe doing some kind of monologue to Atreus, or maybe it starts where the last God of War game ended. I guess I won't spoil it. If somehow you're listening to this PlayStation podcast and you have not played God of War, you've stayed away from spoilers. But maybe it starts off with that confrontation, and then like some like one sentence said to the other, like one character says to Kratos, like, you did this to my sibling. They say something along those lines, and
Have you
it
thought
is
about
like a
writing for
cut.
Santa Monica Studio Blessing? Because
I
I'm
mean,
like here.
hey, Corey Barlog, Alana Pierce. I'm a very good writer. You watched the Blessing show. I write that show. Hire me. But yeah, something along
Just
those
copy and
lines, and then
paste it over. No one will notice.
yeah, nobody will notice. And then you have the cut to God of War Ragnarok or 2 or whatever the official title of the game is, which is probably Ragnarok.
Yes.
I would love that. Janet, you have your PC ports. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, that's another one I went back and forth on, because I was like wondering, would they want to even talk about this on like a stage thing? Because how, like, and the PC port thing, people will have mixed feelings about it. That's just inherent with like being on the internet and the gaming community. But So my thing is maybe they would have a PC port mentioned, but I think if they did mention it on that stage, they would have something to sort of soften the blow for anybody who might be like, why are you talking about the PC when this is a PlayStation thing? So maybe something like if they did Bloodborne on PC, they would do a PS5 update for Bloodborne. So that way it's like, okay, we have two different things to be excited about. And if you are a Bloodborne fan, hopefully by seeing the news package that way, the port is just a way of you thinking, okay, more people are going to get into the franchise. They're going to see how much people like Bloodborne, and Bloodborne 2 will come out sooner or whatever. You can kind of rationalize that in your head the way you want to and make it not be a negative thing. Because I think there are still people in the community that look at the porting as neutral to negative, which, isn't a great place to be. But I think seeing like, okay, when we get PC ports, we also get some type of console treatment, sort of setting that precedent could be really cool for them. And people have been wanting a Bloodborne PS5 update for like ages. So that'd be really cool.
Yeah. Speaking of Bloodborne, I think next gen upgrades would be dope as well, right? Give me Bloodborne on the PS5, even if it's not like an official PS5 version and it is a PS5 update. Just give me 60 FPS for Bloodborne. Damn it. Like, it's time. It's time. I want to play Bloodborne in silky smooth 60 FPS. I've done it with Sekiro, and Sekiro is fucking sexy as hell in 60 FPS, and I think Bloodborne would shine with that too. But yeah, Bloodborne PS5 version would be the dream. Give maybe a Uncharted 4 and Lost Legacy PS5 version. Like, go in that back catalog and give people reasons to revisit some of your best games on the PS4 in new and great ways. If it is like a definitive edition with additional content, or the bells and whistles that will be would shine on the PS5, I think that would be awesome. With that also, this is kind of us speaking of, there's shit that we know exists that they haven't talked about that they could talk about. Shit like The Last of Us remake and The Last of Us Part 2 PS5 version. We know you're working on it. We know we're gonna get that someday. The jig is up. Just reveal it. Just give us a logo. Like I think that would fit well in a PlayStation conference too. And again, like this kind of comes back to the idea of organizing a conference and having those big pop moments. A God of War Ragnarok teaser, some kind of additional reveal for that would be a pop. Bloodborne PS5 would be a pop. Last of Us remake plus Last of Us Part 2. Now that we know it exists already, if you show it to us in a way that makes us go, oh shit, all right, this does look good. I think that would be a pop. And so that's what I want. Also,
would be like, sign up now for the beta. Like that would.
Oh, they're not going to do that.
PlayStation we get a lot of those. That is like literally like how all of those end up going. That or like it's ready now. Like that'd be the two angles that would conjure up any level of excitement, I think, for that specifically. And yeah,
they have to talk about it soon. They have to.
I've been wanting that for so long because I got into Last of Us really late. Like I played Last of Us 1 for the first time all the way through, like a month or two before Last of Us 2 came out, and I never played Factions. I never even actually got to the Last of Us DLC. Like I still have not played that DLC and have been wanting to. So I really want this. I feel like I need this to really understand all the layers of the ways Last of Us can hit. So yeah, hopefully they have to at some point, right? Maybe it's not real. Maybe we just imagined it.
maybe that day was just like a shared fever dream.
Like who said that? No, we never said that. What are you talking about? We're being gaslit by Sony right now. Oh my god.
Exactly. Yeah, Factions. I find it weird that, and maybe it's not weird. I don't know. Factions was talked about so long ago at this point. Like they came out and said that, hey, we are working on a Last of Us like Factions multiplayer thing, some kind of thing that reflects that, because they wanted to calm people down during that lead up to Last of Us Part 2, because Factions had such a dedicated fan base to it. I'm included in that. Factions is such a good time. I loved Factions. I feel like unless the development on it is just taking way longer than they expected, maybe it was a thing of get Last of Us Part 2 out the door and we'll get to Factions when we get to it. Maybe that pushed it up. Maybe it was quarantine that pushed it up. But I want to see something on it. I want to see them talk about it. I want to see them at least reveal it in some sort of official way, because we know it exists and we're looking forward to it. And so I think that would be a great fit for a PlayStation conference. Lastly, to round it all out, and of course, this also isn't in order. We didn't have time to like really craft out how you'd present this thing kind of order, and so I don't think if I was PlayStation, I was doing a conference, this wouldn't be my one more thing. But a thing that they need to talk about, I think, is VR. They showed off.
We should have made a fake conference, like got on stage and like put the PlayStation Shadow people up front and stuff.
if we made the background an actual like stage as opposed to the traditional PlayStation.
I'm just
PS5
like, here
logo.
it's Santa Monica Studios. I don't know. I'm not sure what Cormac would say, but something like that. We have
Actually,
the
hold
side
this
angles and
idea.
everything.
I really like this idea. I need you to hold that idea. In fact, you are
Okay.
dressed up for it. I want you to know. We can make this happen.
Yeah,
All
we got
right,
the
I'm gonna
blazer
circle
for
back
it.
around
We
with
got
you.
the blazer for it.
You got the
Yeah, we
blazer.
can do
We got
this.
Roger. We got Roger McCorney, who knows how to edit shit. And
Yes.
so I need you.
If you
I
can
need you
be
to
inside
put a pin in
dreams,
that
I
one.
feel like we can be the PlayStation presentation.
This is such a good idea. But to round things out, I do want to. Yeah, I want to talk about VR because VR. They've shown off some of what they're working on for VR. It seems like it's gonna be coming out sometime soon. And when I say soon, I mean like in the next couple of years, not soon as in tomorrow. And I think it'd be great to have them reinforce some of what that looks like, inspire hope for PlayStation VR. PlayStation VR, I think in the grand scheme, didn't have like a giant audience, but for what VR is at a space, PlayStation VR did have a pretty big VR audience comparatively. And I think they had a pretty good VR library as well. And so to come out and be like, hey, PSVR 2 is happening, you're gonna see it in 2022, and here's some of the big games you can look forward to from PlayStation VR 2. And maybe it is a montage, maybe it is a deep dive into a couple of things that they're working on internally or first party with PlayStation Studios. I think that could be a really cool thing.
I think too, like something that would have like this probably would have been too much for one conference, and I don't know how what the timeline of PSVR 2 is like right now, but it'd be cool. I really want to see some presentation level stuff in terms of demos, like what is the PSVR setup, and then what does setting up VR2 look like? 'Cause that's something a lot of people complained about. Do a side by side of some graphics comparisons, like talk about the new controller design, the ergonomics there, and what went into like. I want kind of like almost at the level of, which I feel like this kind of came and went also. Remember when I think it was Microsoft that did that weird like AR thing with like Minecraft and everything? Like
Yeah,
I want
that was
something.
Microsoft.
Yes, I want something like at that level, but with a PSVR angle to really get people excited about it. And I'm just so hyped that they're still doing it. I mean, I know like some people are really cold on VR, but I think it is a really interesting niche, and I feel like it adds some distinct flavor to PlayStation. Again, we're talking about like brand identity and how Xbox has their ethos very much established, and PlayStation has things that they're very strong at, like amazing first party stuff, definitely an appreciation of indies that they back up, some interesting things with PS Plus, but I think VR could really end up being an interesting identifier that they seem like really committed to making super strong. And I mean, we saw stuff like Astrobot Rescue Mission alone is worth PSVR. Like that is one
Oh
of the best
yeah,
platformers I've played
dude.
in a long
Like
time.
Astrobot Rescue Mission, Moss, Beat Saber, Trover Saves the Universe, Blood and Truth. PlayStation VR had such a fucking strong library, and I wanted to see it flourish because I think there's actually really fun stuff there. I think the question is, will it continue to flourish in the same way? Because I feel like it's been a minute since we've gotten a VR game that's like oh fuck yeah, you got to show up to this. Like we got Iron Man VR last year, but I felt like that was fine. I know Greg Miller liked it. But it wasn't it wasn't as good as Moss or
Yes.
again Beat Saber, all the games I mentioned before. Then you also got Walking Dead: Saints and Sinners that came out last year as well, which people did have a lot of good things to say about. But I think you need a little bit more than that. And PSVR in the last, I guess, year or so, hasn't had as much support as some of those earlier years. And PSVR 2 might be the time where they come back and they are like, cool, the all the games you loved from PSVR, we're coming back and we're having that same cadence. You're gonna get some VR masterpieces. You're gonna get some dope ass games. You're gonna get another Astrobot Rescue Mission. You're gonna get the games that you love. I really hope PSVR 2 ends up being that because it's a really cool device to have. It's a really cool ecosystem.
Yeah, I'm really excited about it, and I'm hoping to see a lot of support like via PS Plus when that first comes out. Like I'm trying to see, like I want a VR game like every month.
Yeah. Oh my god, that'd be amazing. Janet, that's been our PlayStation E3 2021 press conference as put together by Janet and Blessing.
5 out of 10. Dance. Show some games, bro.
Damn it. We were almost there.
So I wanted to emulate the Twitch chat for every conference, you know. Sleep emote,
Janet, how do you feel?
Sleep emote.
How do you feel about and Bear, I want to know from you too. How do you feel about the PlayStation E3 press conference we just put together? Was it hype? Did you have a good time? Did we win E3?
Oh, one is strong. Oh man. Oh, geez. I'm like looking back now. Even though it's funny because I helped make it, so I guess it's my own. I made my own failings. But one is strong when you compare it to. This is so silly too because we're comparing a theoretical conference to a real one. When you compare it to Xbox, oh man, I think that Bloodborne thing really helped. If we have that
Yeah.
Bloodborne
Oh my god. Yeah.
upgrade,
Bloodborne for the PS5 was definitely a crowd pleaser. People went crazy for that when Twitter was going off
and
the chain.
Factions, okay. I think if Factions, the Bloodborne thing, and the God of War tease was in there, that it would be a pretty solid argument for beating Xbox's real conference.
Don't forget PS
things.
Plus and PS Now. You know, restating the vision and lumping them together. That was a big move.
Well, it depends on
Nobody
how you
saw that
restate.
coming.
If you lump it together, that's a big deal. Like I had on my bingo card for Xbox. This is real Xbox, not theoretical in our mind Xbox. Like Live just being free, which I knew wasn't gonna happen, but I'm like, wouldn't it be crazy? I feel like the PS Plus now, PS Plus, announced at E3. Who can forget the E3 where they announced PS Plus? You can't. It's not possible. So yes, we did great. We won. Hire us also, or at least offer a job that we can leverage for more money at where we currently are.
Oh, 1000%. Yeah. No, like offer me like 40K more than what Greg Miller pays me, and so I can take it back to him and be like, hey bro, only got one way to keep me here. You gotta pay me 60K more.
I think there should be a solid conference, honestly. Like again, there like people would complain because there's nothing like majorly new announced. I think your one more thing would either be Last of Us Factions, like confirming that is like it is coming out soon, or revealing God of War Ragnarok gameplay footage. I think that would be your one last thing, because I think PlayStation, where they're at right now, it's like we kind of know for things that we're ready to see and things they're ready to talk about for the next couple of years, we pretty much know their lineup. And so like a big like crazy, oh fuck, Keanu Reeves is walking on stage, who could have predicted this kind of thing? I don't think like that would have been this year if they showed up at E3. And people like saying like, oh, PlayStation needed to be at E3 to save E3 this year. It's like, if they were there this year, like I don't think they would have saved E3. I think it would be a lot of the same conversations that people have been having about Xbox of like, yeah, it was fun stuff. We got to see some stuff that we may not have seen if E3 wasn't put together this year and stuff like that, but nothing that was like, holy shit, you're blowing my mind. My brain is about to explode with all of this hype that we could not have predicted. I think it would have been like, you know, like a solid like 7, 8 out of 10 kind of conference, and we would have moved on.
But what if we had an orchestra? What if we had an orchestra?
If we had an orchestra,
playing
it would have been hype
announcements?
and stuff like that. But
Cool.
yeah, I don't kind of wrapping up like my thoughts on what you guys have been talking about as a whole. I don't think PlayStation needed to be here this year. Let them kind of talk about things when they're ready to talk about them, and that's just kind of my feeling is E3 as a whole right now is like, and we've seen it time and time again the last few days, blessing of like, I think E3 creates this idea in developers' minds of like, oh, it's E3, we need to be there for something, even if we have absolutely nothing to fucking show. And so
that was Capcom, Koch, and Gearbox.
Yeah.
That was
Remember that one really bad Nintendo year? That was brutal. They were literally like, we have nothing because we're working on other stuff.
Yeah.
And then we just sat there and looked at each other for 30 minutes.
And so like I think it's just like I think the concept of E3 of like having it all in this week is like a fun idea. We all get hyped for very specific things and stuff like that. I don't know if like this kind of thing is really needed. Maybe like not never.
I mean,
but like I don't know if it's needed every year. Is my thing. I don't know if it just.
I feel you.
Sometimes it feels a little forced and stuff like that. So maybe we do E3 every 2 years. You know what I'm saying?
But then
give us a summer off. Is what I'm saying. Honestly.
But you can't just like. Hold
I like it. I like treating E3 like the Olympics.
Yeah.
You can't. That would be cool, but you can't hold. Or it should be like the World Cup every 4 years. Like just.
I mean, both of those are every 4 years, except
you
for the
can't
Olympics.
just hold
last
like
time.
your dope stuff though. Like it would be cool in a
Summer
world where you
E3
could
and
somehow
winter E3.
make all of God of War Ragnarok or God of War Zabumafu, whatever the title actually ends up being, and make all of Horizon Zero Dawn and save them and be like, oh, come, you know, when the Olympics of gaming shows up, everyone, you know, rolls out and it's amazing. But like that's just not how like that dev cycle or like the cycle of like having to sell stuff to keep your company existing and thriving works. So I think you do kind of need E3 to be every year, because you can't like what if you have a really good year? Like it wouldn't strengthen E3. I think it would just make more jarring gaps. Like it was like, oh, well, this year was really weak, but last year they had Breath of the Wild, so like it's okay. Like it ended up with this weird in between. And I think even if you kill E3, a new E3 will just rise. It's like when
if you
see
kill
this on
E3,
sitcoms
you'll get what we got last year too.
when
where it
Reese
is
stopped
everything
being the
spread
bully
out.
in Malcolm in the Middle. Spoilers for Malcolm in the Middle if you still haven't watched that show. Great show on Hulu. When Reese stopped being the bully, a bunch of new bullies just arose, and it
Yeah.
wasn't as good as when Reese
like
was just
Hydra.
taking care of things. Yeah, so like you can kill E3, but then we'll have summer summer gaming, Game Fest, whatever anyone else does. I'm sure y'all would probably also do something. No shade, but like it's like you don't want to fill that gap. So like you cannot kill E3 because the spirit of E3 would just leave and go inside of another presenter.
E3, the necessary evil that tires us all.
I think there's also a range of value for E3 because like for the future showcases and for the PC Gamer Show and for pretty much like most of the shows we had this week, most of the stuff we probably wouldn't have reacted to or watched if it wasn't part of E3. Like I wouldn't know about half the games we saw this weekend if there wasn't an E3. Those things would have been announced on Twitter or announced in some other venue, and I feel like so many people would have missed out on so much of that stuff, and that is kind of the power of E3. That comes to the question of how much does that matter for an Xbox or Nintendo or PlayStation? Probably not as much because people are going to tune into those anyway. And so I think that's where it comes back to your argument, Barrett, which I think is a salient one. But I do think it comes back to, again, like, what do you have to show? And what does showing it at E3 do for you? I think for Xbox, it allows them to kind of be the talk of the town. Amongst a week of big news, they are the biggest news. And we'll see what Nintendo does tomorrow, but that could also work for Nintendo as well, where in a week of big news, Nintendo comes out and they announce Mario Odyssey plus Galaxy 2. That's right. You're exploring the world, but then also you go out of space and explore. They come out and they announce some big thing and they also become the talk of the town. I think there's pluses and minuses to it, but it is all about what you have to show. And we've seen both cases of folks that don't have any shit to show and they do E3 just because they can, because it's digital, and then folks who do have things to show and they end up killing it, or do have things to show and they don't show them well. It's all ifs. It's all ifs. Janet, thank you once again for joining me on this episode of PS I Love You XOXO. Chat, comments, let us know if we won E3. Janet, before we go, where can people find your work?
You can find my work on patreon.com/GameOnasis. Just a regular slash. And also just, I'd say follow me on Twitter at GameOnasis, and same thing with Twitch, YouTube. Like I'm on all platforms under the handle GameOnasis. But yeah, still doing Twitch streaming, still jumping on here, jumping on MinMax, doing a bunch of stuff. Yeah, it's the same old, but with new games, new news. So yeah, we'll keep it moving.
Hell yeah. Remember, this has been PS I Love You XOXO, your PlayStation podcast. Each and every week we get together to talk about the hottest topics in PlayStation. We've got a Patreon post show. Actually, that's a lie. We don't have a Patreon post show. I'm just reading from a script right now. Of course, this is your PlayStation podcast. So thanks for listening, everybody. Until next time, peace out.